The Jiang dynasty was, in the Han province, within the vast and flourishing power, other than prosperous scenes everywhere. There was even an ancient aura. After all, it was the longest existing power in the current continent of the 9 provinces. It had been existing for several thousand years already. Several days of time had already passed since Chu Feng, Ling, Zhang Tianyi, the monstrous monkey king, Gu Tianchen, and the others came into the Jiang dynasty. Ever since coming in, the traces of the monstrous monkey king and Gu Tianchen disappeared. It was said that the emperor had things to discuss with the two of them. At first, Chu Feng, Ling, and Zhang Tianyi were still a bit worried whether anything bad happened to the monstrous monkey king. But the Jiang dynasty didn't do anything to the 3 of them, and were even treating them as important guests. Not only was there good wine and good food during the entire day, they even gave them a certain amount of heaven medicine to cultivate every day. That also caused Chu Feng and the others to lower their guards. After all, if the monstrous monkey king were to meet with misfortune, with their strengths, they were simply like ants there. Many people in the Jiang dynasty could kill the 3 of them. But at present, not only were they fine, they even received such good treatment. It meant that the Monkey King was still well, and at least the Jiang dynasty didn't plan to do anything bad to them. Big brother Chu Feng, Lady Ling, long time no see. On that day, Chu Feng and the others were chatting in a garden. Suddenly, an energetic voice rang out from the distant sky. Looking over towards the voice, they saw a handsome young man wearing a golden robe flying over from the sky. With a blink, he landed in front of Chu Feng and the others. That person was none other than the Jiang dynasty's prince, the one with the best talent within the current Jiang dynasty, according to Jiang Yini, Jiang Wushang. Brother Wushang, so it's you. Seeing Jiang Wushang, Chu Feng was very happy as well, although he didn't interact with Jiang Wushang too much, because he saved Jiang Wushang's life back then in the 1,000-monster mountain. He put that favor in his heart. Only because of that, the Jiang dynasty seemed to send out troops to catch Chu Feng on the surface. But in reality, after finding him, not only did Jiang Yini not apprehend him, she even thanked Chu Feng and gifted a large amount of heaven medicine to him. Because of that, Jiang Wushang indirectly caused him to be able to raise his cultivation even quicker, which was equal to helping Chu Feng. So Chu Feng had quite a good image of Jiang Wushang. Currently, Jiang Wushang actually called him Big Brother, so naturally, he was willing to recognize that brother. After Jiang Wushang appeared, he called Chu Feng, Ling, and Zhang Tianyi onto a tall tower in the clouds. On the tall tower, Jiang Wushang prepared a table of extremely sumptuous feast to welcome the 3 of them. Big brother Chu Feng, Lady Ling, Big brother Tianyi, I am really sorry. I was doing some closed-door cultivation before, so I wasn't able to immediately welcome all of you. Please forgive me because of that. Jiang Wushang removed his former pride all at once. Not only was he polite to Chu Feng and Ling, he was polite to even Zhang Tianyi. He called Big Brother here and there, and he called them in a very close way. He even poured wine for them and toasted, as if he himself wasn't the noble prince of the Jiang dynasty, but truly the younger brother of Chu Feng and the others. Ah, Brother Wushang, you're really too polite. However, within 1 year, Brother Wushang, you've made breakthroughs from the 9th level of the profound realm into the 2nd level of the heaven realm. This speed truly makes me sweat from embarrassment. Seeing Jiang Wushang's present cultivation of the 2nd level of the heaven realm, Chu Feng helplessly smiled. In the eyes of outsiders, he was a genius, but he was inferior to Ling. Yet Jiang Wushang was clearly even more insane. Clearly, his cultivation was the same as Ling's a year ago, but right now, he was even a level higher than Ling. That caused Chu Feng to feel surprise. After all, Ling was a legendary divine body. Honestly speaking, Big Brother Chu Feng, the people of my Jiang dynasty are all people who grasp an inherited bloodline. As long as there is sufficient resources for us, making breakthroughs isn't any hard thing. And I'll say this without modestly, but my bloodline power can be said to be the most powerful in the current Jiang dynasty. The old ancestor had personally spoken. My bloodline power has already infinitely neared an emperor bloodline. If in the future, with coincidences, perhaps I make a breakthrough and gain the power of emperor bloodlines, at that time my comprehension power and strength will far surpass me right now. Jiang Wushang said with a face filled with pride. It could be seen that he liked and was proud of his special bloodline power. If you truly gain the power of an emperor bloodline in the future, when you make breakthroughs, you would also require more cultivation resources, right? Just at that time, Ziling asked with a face filled with curiosity. Of course, there is a supreme inherited bloodline. At that time, even if my Jiang dynasty pours all its resources into me, it won't be enough. But that's fine. If there is truly a day like that, then I can definitely break through the bindings of the heaven realm and become a martial lord. At that time, I can completely rely on myself to gain cultivation resources. Jiang Wushang patted his chest and said, seeming to yearn a lot for the arrival of that day, I never would have thought that your inherited bloodline would actually be this powerful. Zhang Tianyi nodded his head with quite a bit of admiration, but as he spoke, he couldn't help but look at Chu Feng and hiddenly sent a mental message. Junior Chu Feng, the special power you grasp, wouldn't also be an inherited bloodline, right? If that's true, then because of the enormous amount of resources you require and outstanding talent, would you have the Jiang Wushang is talking about? At the same time, Ziling also cast her gaze towards Chu Feng. Although she already knew that there was special lighting in Chu Feng's body, it was a bit different from the power of inherited bloodlines. But Chu Feng's cultivation method was indeed extremely similar to inherited bloodlines. So she also felt that what Chu Feng grasped was very possibly the emperor bloodline Jiang Wushang dreamed to grasp. Facing their gazes that begged for an explanation, Chu Feng was also unable to answer them, because he too didn't know whether the divine lighting he grasped was the so-called emperor bloodline. Thus, he could only helplessly shake his head. Brother Wusheng, compared to royal bloodlines, do emperor bloodlines have special powers? Seeing that, Ziling cast her gaze towards Jiang Wushang again. Her goal was very clear. She wanted to help Chu Feng unravel what his power was through Jiang Wushang. I'm also not clear on that. To be honest, within my Jiang dynasty, there has never been a person with an emperor bloodline, nor has anyone ever seen a person with an emperor bloodline. From what I've heard, people with emperor bloodlines only exist within that legendary land. Jiang Wushang smiled as he shook his head. Legendary land. Hearing those words, a hint of shock flashed into Chu Feng's and the others' eyes because all of them knew where the legendary land was. It was definitely the heart of this world, the place where only true geniuses could enter, a land where the true experts of the world gathered. Brother Wusheng, then is this the strongest within inherited bloodlines? Ziling continued asking. Lady Ziling, you seem to have great interest in inherited bloodlines, eh? However, after Ziling spoke, Jiang Wushang's eyes suddenly flickered and he became alert. I do indeed feel very interested. After all, this inherited bloodline is a very special power. Normal people don't have it, and as a person who cultivates naturally, I am very curious. Ziling blinked her big eyes lacking of any evil and replied calmly. Seeing Ziling like that, Jiang Wushang put away his previous alertness, chuckled and said, the martial cultivation talent that people with royal bloodlines have already far surpassed normal people and can be counted as geniuses. But emperor bloodlines are several times more terrifying than royal bloodlines. Those who have an emperor bloodline is a genius within geniuses. So that's why people with emperor bloodlines are existences in legends. If there's a bloodline even more powerful than emperor bloodlines, what talent would a person with it have? What power would they grasp? What kind of person would they be in order to grasp such a bloodline? Hearing Jiang Wushang speak those words like that, Chu Feng and the others sank into contemplation. Simultaneously, the three of them thought back at what happened in the Sword God Valley. At that time, the power Chu Feng burst out was indeed very terrifying, or else it wouldn't be categorized as a natural disaster by the Jiang dynasty. They didn't even think that it was possible to be caused by a person. So, power like that was something they didn't understand currently. That was why they could not confirm what power Chu Feng grasped. And high-level bloodline power was one of the possibilities they guessed of. Just as Chu Feng and the others were thinking deeply, Jiang Wushang suddenly spoke. He said with a face filled with admiration, "However, I heard my old ancestors say that there is indeed a bloodline above emperor bloodlines." Really? At that instant, the expressions of Chu Feng, Ziling, and Zhang Tianyi all changed. My old ancestor did indeed say that, but even emperor bloodlines are legends. Wouldn't the bloodline above emperor bloodlines be the legend within legends? Whether that thing exists or not, who can prove it? Perhaps in the future, after arriving in that land, someone could give us that answer. Jiang Wushang lightly smiled, then said to the three of them, "Big brother Chu Feng, big brother Tianyi, Lady Ziling, I believe with your talents, you will not stay long in the continent of the 9 provinces, right? How about, after some time, we go to the 4 Seas Academy for cultivation?" After hearing the words, Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi had faces filled with question marks. On the other hand, Ziling said with quite some understanding, "The 4 Seas Academy is one of the strongest forces in the Eastern Sea region. This academy accepts everyone in the world. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't even matter if you're a monstrous beast or human. As long as you pass the examination, any can enter the academy. And also because of this special disciple acceptance method, it's called the 4 Seas Academy. However, although the S restrictions are very small, the exam is very difficult. So, those who are able to enter the 4 Seas Academy can all be said to be geniuses. Even the people from the Eastern Sea region feel pride and are proud to be a disciple of the 4 Seas Academy, let alone people from other continents. The cultivation method of this academy is very special as well. They would arrange special experiences for the disciples, provide special cultivation areas, and even large amounts of cultivation resources. But every disciple can only stay in the academy and cultivate for 4 years. After 4 years, the 4 Seas Academy hosts a graduation ceremony. In the graduation ceremony, the disciples who should graduate participate in a special exam as a group, and according to the results of the exam, they get different levels of academy badges. The people who get the badges are still counted as disciples of the 4 Seas Academy even after leaving the academy. In the future, they can get different levels of assistance from the 4 Seas Academy. Of course, if something were to happen to the 4 Seas Academy, the disciples were also expected to return to help. But generally speaking, the badge is an indication of status and position. In the future, it greatly assists the development of powers and individuals. Ziling detailedly said, and after hearing Ziling's narration, Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi looked at each other with their 4 eyes. Clearly, the two of them felt very interested in the. It was because, in the continent of the 9 provinces, they were peak geniuses, but they might not be so in other continents. They were even more unsure in the Eastern Sea region, since there was a place of gathering for peak geniuses from countless continents. Naturally, they wanted to check out what abilities geniuses from other continents had. That's right, Lady Ziling is extremely correct. My elder sister Jiang Yini's talent is actually not the best within the same generation. However, because she sulkily left home because of some minor things, and because of some luck, she entered the 4 Seas Academy, and a world-flipping change happened to her. When my elder sister cultivated for 4 years in the 4 Seas Academy and returned to the dynasty, in terms of cultivation and strength, she already far surpassed those in the same generation. That's how she became the strongest person in my current Jiang dynasty's young generation. Ever since then, my Jiang dynasty have always sent out a batch of excellent people in the young generation every year to the 4 Seas Academy to pursue excellence. In that sea region, peak people in the young generation from countless continents will gather, as well as many things that we haven't seen before. Anyway, in that place, not only will it help greatly in terms of cultivation, there will also be clear effects on sharpening one's life skills. So, I want to invite the three of you to join with me. After all, that place is different from the continent of the 9 provinces. I'll say some unpleasant words. The backgrounds of many disciples there are far above mine. In that place, there is no one to rely on, and only I and my clan can go there for an exam. However, if the 4 of us are together, even if we reach the 4 Seas Academy where powerful people gather, we can more or less look after one another. Also, I believe that with our potential, we will definitely be like fishes in water at that place. There will be a day when we become the dragon within men and step onto that legendary land. At that very instant, Jiang Wushang seemed very excited. His young face clearly showed infinite yearning. So the place he looked forward to was the same as Chu Feng, Ling, and Zhang Tianyi's. It wasn't the continent of the 9 provinces, nor the Eastern Sea region, but the legendary land. Sure, since sooner or later, I, Zhang Tianyi, will head towards the Eastern Sea region rather than later, why not sooner? I'll go together with you, Brother Wusheng, and join the 4 Seas Academy. Zhang Tianyi immediately agreed, and similarly he was filled with yearning. At that instant, Chu Feng cast his gaze towards Ling. Only then did he discover that Ling was also looking at himself. The 2 of them, from their special gazes, saw each other's answer, so they nodded and said, "Okay, then it's decided." After Chu Feng, Ling, Zhang Tianyi, and Jiang Wushang decided on a date to go to the 4 Seas Academy together. They talked about everything, and the more they chatted, the more engaged they got. Of the following few days, Jiang Wushang came to find Chu Feng and the others every single day, and brought them around for sightseeing and to have fun. They exchanged their knowledge in martial cultivation, and even brought Chu Feng and the others to visit the Jiang dynasty's martial skill building, letting them choose martial skills and mysterious techniques they liked. But it was useless, as Chu Feng, Ling, and Zhang Tianyi all grasped powerful martial skills and mysterious techniques already. So they only casually looked, and no one truly chose any to cultivate. But no matter what, they still remembered that favor in their hearts. And after staying in the Jiang dynasty for 1 full month, the monstrous Monkey King and Gu Tianchen finally appeared. Chu Feng also finally knew why they disappeared for so long, and went to chat about what. At that moment, the monstrous Monkey King and Chu Feng were alone in a room. It then told everything they did in these days to Chu Feng. So the Jiang dynasty wants to invite you and Senior Gu Tianchen to go together to open the Azure province's Emperor Tomb. Chu Feng was a bit shocked, yet it was within expectations. You indeed know about the Emperor Tomb. The secret skills you grasp are also related to the Emperor Tomb, right? The monstrous Monkey King looked at Chu Feng while chuckling, seeming to already know where Chu Feng's secret skill came from. To be honest, my secret skills are indeed from the Emperor Tomb, and from what I know, there are 4 entrances to the Emperor Tomb. Right now, there is still 1 secret skill that hasn't appeared yet. Chu Feng didn't hide anything and spoke the truth. There is indeed 1 secret skill that hasn't appeared yet, and that secret skill should be hidden within the Vermilion Bird mountain range. The monstrous Monkey King said, "Monkey bro, how did you know everything already?" Chu Feng was a bit amazed. He didn't expect the monstrous Monkey King to have so much information. Hesh boy, if even you know, why not think about it a bit more thoroughly? Is it possible that the Jiang dynasty, the power that is named as the overlord of the 9 provinces for several thousand years, want know about Emperor Tombs? It is possible that they want no more secrets about the Emperor Tomb than you. The monstrous Monkey King smilingly said, "But if the Jiang dynasty already knew about the Emperor Tomb, why haven't they made their move yet and instead let me gain benefits from the Emperor Tomb?" Chu Feng asked with a face filled with puzzledness. Naturally. The Jiang dynasty has already went to the Emperor Tomb, but there just wasn't the slightest bit of harvest, because these things are about chance. Even though they are able to break open the mechanisms of the Emperor Tomb, they may not gain the approval of the secret skill. Besides, this Emperor Tomb cannot be underestimated. With the Jiang dynasty's strength, they are still unable to completely open the Emperor Tomb. Even if they use their full strength, they can only get a bit of the sweet end, and they still have to pay a price for that. So, they also have worries, and that's why they have always not cared about the Emperor Tomb. They are waiting for a martial lord to appear within their clan before making their move on the Emperor Tomb. But they could do nothing, as after waiting for so many years, there has still not been anyone who is able to enter the martial lord realm. Right now, although they haven't prepared well yet, a chance has come from waiting. You are that chance, the monstrous Monkey King said. Chu Feng's pupils abruptly shrunk, feeling more and more shocked. That's right, you have 2 secret skills on you, which means that you have went to at least 2 Emperor Tomb entrances. With your previously petty cultivation, you were able to enter the Emperor Tomb 2 times and return with everything intact. That doesn't really make sense. So, you're the person who is fated for this Emperor Tomb. Borrowing you, perhaps they can gain some benefits in the Emperor Tomb. Actually, back then, when the Jiang dynasty's emperor hurriedly went to the World Spirit Guild and wanted to dissolve the war, one reason was because he wanted to protect you and bring you back to the Jiang dynasty. The monstrous Monkey King said, "It's actually to save me." Chu Feng lightly frowned. He didn't expect that the Jiang dynasty would already have their eyes on himself. It was unknown whether it was a fortune or a disaster. Anyway, the Jiang dynasty has already prepared its strongest force to open the Emperor Tomb, and the opening entrance is the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range's entrance. Gu Tianchen and I will also be participating in this Emperor Tomb opening, and you are also one of the characters who cannot be left out. The monstrous Monkey King said, "Since the Emperor Tomb is so terrifying and even the Jiang dynasty doesn't dare to be rash, what can I do?" Chu Feng asked. "You don't need to do anything, just follow us. The people from the Jiang dynasty will do their best to protect you. Moreover, you've also entered the Emperor Tomb, so you should know that there are unlimited benefits inside. Accordingly, with your strength, you aren't qualified to have a share of the Emperor Tomb. However, only because your luck is good, and no matter what methods you used, you did indeed gain the approval of 2 secret skills in the Emperor Tomb, so you have obtained this chance. All in all, this is a good thing. Wait until the Jiang dynasty prepares everything. Then just follow us and go in together. If it truly will not work, I can escape with you. With me, a purple cloak world spiritist, I guarantee that nothing will happen to you." The monstrous Monkey King very casually said, but within its blood-red eyes, there was some desire that surged. It could be seen that the Emperor Tomb's attraction was indeed irresistible by anyone. Seeing that, Chu Feng could only nod his head. In a time like this, it was indeed not good for him to refuse. Besides, he had always wanted to gain some benefits in the Emperor Tomb, and since the Jiang dynasty was going to open it with its full power, it had to be said that it was a good chance. So naturally, Chu Feng was willing to follow them into the Emperor Tomb. "That's right, Chu Feng, you keep this." Suddenly, the monstrous Monkey King threw a cosmos sack to Chu Feng. "This is..." Chu Feng curiously examined it. The examination didn't seem to be that important, but his expression changed greatly, and his face was filled with shock. "Monkey bro, this is too precious. I can't take it." Inside the cosmos sack, there was actually 30,000 high-quality heaven medicine. That price was equivalent to 30 million profound beads. The monstrous Monkey King had actually gave all the wealth it demanded from the 5 powers to Chu Feng. "Right now, I can no longer rely on cultivation resources to make breakthroughs, or else in the future, my achievements will be restricted, making me unable to step into the martial lord realm in my life. If that happens, I would be extremely bitter. No matter how it's said, I have gotten pointers from that senior expert. If I am unable to step into the martial lord realm, I would let him down too much. Besides, I wanted these cultivation resources for you. Just take them. It's also time for your Azure Dragon School to be rebuilt. These heaven medicine will help you when rebuilding the Azure Dragon School." The monstrous Monkey King unconcernedly smiled and said, "Monkey bro, I." Seeing the monstrous Monkey King who was like that, there were unspeakable feelings in Chu Feng's heart. Thinking back at first when he didn't trust it and even specially forced it to consume a poisonous pill. Then right now, seeing everything it was doing for himself, Chu Feng really felt endlessly ashamed. At that instant, Chu Feng truly wanted to remove the poison pill in the monstrous Monkey King's body, but he could do nothing as Eggy's poisonous pill was something she brought along with her from the Asura spirit world. Only the Asura spirit world had the antidote, but Eggy was restricted by a special seal, so she could not return to the Asura spirit world. Thus, there was no way to get the antidote, and as long as he thought about how good the monstrous Monkey King was treating him right now, and recalled that he actually gave the monstrous Monkey King a poisonous pill that had no antidote, the shame in Chu Feng's heart became even intenser. "Ah boy, don't be so weak. Do you think that I call you brother as a joke? I truly took a liking to you, so that's why I recognize you as a brother. It was normal for you to not believe me at first and to tell me to consume the poisonous pill. After all, I was the first to put you in danger, and despite that being only my test for you, in reality, it did indeed put you in danger and you almost lost your life. Anyway, you put me in peril, I put you in peril. It's even so from now on we are good brothers. No need to weigh the things that happened before. Let's go." Opening the Emperor tomb isn't a small matter. The Jiang dynasty still has many things to prepare and they still need to spend quite a bit of time. Take this time and let us go to your Azure Dragon School. First save your 2 wives, then we'll talk about the rest. The monstrous Monkey King saw Chu Feng's heart of shame, so its smile was very unconcerned, wanting to reduce his shame with that. As it spoke, it opened the room door and went out first to call Zi Ling and Zhang Tianyi to make preparations to leave this place, to go forward to the Azure province. Seeing the monstrous Monkey King act like that, Chu Feng's heart was extremely warm. He never would have thought that with chances and accidents, he would get to know such a good big brother. Even though that big brother wasn't human, Chu Feng still liked it from the bottom of his heart. After knowing that Chu Feng and the others were going to leave, the emperor of the Jiang dynasty even specially set up a banquet at the most holy place in the Jiang dynasty, on the moon-watching tower, to entertain them. During the banquet, Chu Feng and the others were very happy, but no matter if it was Chu Feng or the monstrous Monkey King, the two of them didn't notice that within a certain ocean of clouds, outside of the moon-watching tower, there was an invisible tall tower, and in there stood an old man wearing a golden cloak as well as having white and gray hair. That old man was very powerful. His aura was thick and was actually a lot stronger than the monstrous Monkey King's. Also, the reason why the tall tower in the clouds wasn't detected by anyone was because there was a purple-colored spirit formation covering it, and the purple-colored spirit formation was coming from the old man's hands. The old man's aged pair of eyes were full of life, and at that instant, he was carefully looking towards the top of the moon-watching tower, at the young man chatting and laughing with Jiang Wushang, Chu Feng. Jiang Hengyuan pays his respects. Suddenly, the delivery formation on the tall tower slightly undulated, then a body appeared on top of the tower. That person was none other than the Jiang dynasty peak expert who watched over the Azure province for many years, Jiang Hengyuan. "Oh Hengyuan, 7 years passed in a blink. You're finally willing to come back to see an old man like me." The old ancestor of the Jiang dynasty smilingly looked at Jiang Hengyuan, but within his eyes there was a bit of pain. "Ancestor, back then I accepted your orders and went forth to the Azure province to search for the divine body, but it was useless as countless babies were carried back, yet none of them was a divine body. I felt shame in my heart, so before finding the divine body naturally, I didn't dare to return to the imperial city." Jiang Hengyuan's face was filled with shame as he replied, "Then why have you returned today?" The old ancestor of the Jiang dynasty asked. I heard that you were preparing to open the Emperor Tomb, and I deeply knew that Emperor Tombs could not be underestimated. As a part of the dynasty, at a time like this, of course I have to come back to be a part of the dynasty's force. Jiang Hengyuan replied, Haha, O Hengyuan, I have indeed not been mistaken. Rise. The old ancestor laughed, then went up and personally propped up Jiang Hengyuan, who was half kneeling on the ground. Only then did he ask, You have been in the Azure province for 7 full years. Have you gotten any results? I have been useless. After watching over the Azure province for 7 full years, I don't have any results to show. Ancestor, please grant a punishment. Jiang Hengyuan was endlessly ashamed, and as he spoke, he was going to kneel again. But this time before he knelt, he was stopped by the Jiang clan's old ancestor. He said, O Hengyuan, do not blame yourself. This matter cannot be blamed on you. The one who's wrong is me. Ancestor, why so? After hearing the words of the Jiang clan's old ancestor, Jiang Hengyuan's face was filled with confusion. Hengyuan, back then, the 9-colored divine lightning appeared above the 9 heavens river of stars. With my careful observation, it was the same as the ancient records. It was definitely an abnormality that only appears when an extraordinary expert descends into the world. However, so many years has passed, yet the divine body has not been found. So I felt that something must have went wrong. I then looked through all the ancient books in the dynasty and finally discovered a possibility. The Jiang clan's old ancestor said, What possibility? Jiang Hengyuan closely asked. The abnormality definitely represented the descent of an extraordinary expert, but it wasn't a divine body. It was a power even stronger than divine bodies. The Jiang clan's old ancestor said, What? Power even stronger than divine bodies? Hearing those words, Jiang Hengyuan was ceaselessly shocked. The ancient books didn't record what the specifics were, but I believe that the person who triggered that abnormality is in my Jiang dynasty right now. As he spoke, the old ancestor of the Jiang clan suddenly turned around, walked to the edge of the tall tower, and cast his gaze downwards at Chu Feng, who was currently eating. That's Chu Feng. Following the gaze of the Jiang clan's old ancestor, Jiang Hengyuan's already shocked expression greatly changed instantly, as if he didn't dare to believe that fact. Quickly after, he said to the old ancestor, Ancestor, I know this Chu Feng, and indeed his talent is unordinary. However, he is already 17 years old right now. It doesn't match the age of that extraordinary expert. O Hengyuan, it is exactly thinking like this that held you down, causing you to stay in the Azure province for 7 full years, but not having the slightest results to show. When the abnormality happens, it represents the descent of an extraordinary, powerful person, but it doesn't mean that the powerful person must be a newborn baby. According to the ancient records, the stronger the power, the stranger it is. Some great and powerful character may be ordinary when young, but when their power is awakened, the abnormality will trigger, and at the same time they would gain power that can destroy the sky and the earth. Although Chu Feng, Zi Ling, and Zhang Tianyi don't admit they went to the Sword God Valley, from what I know, before the natural disaster appeared in the Sword God Valley, the 3 of them did indeed ride a chariot toward the Sword God Valley. And there is only one reason why they denied going there. It's that the terrifying natural disaster was related to the 3 of them. To be more precise, it should be related to Chu Feng. The Jiang clan's old ancestor said, Ancestor, is this true? The natural disaster that appeared in the Sword God Valley was caused by Chu Feng. A mortal can truly have such terrifying power. Hearing those words, Jiang Hengyuan was immediately dumbstruck. His expression became extremely vivid because, after knowing about the Sword God Valley, he did go there to investigate. After seeing the destroyed land, he firmly decided that it was definitely a natural disaster, impossible for it to be done by a person. O Hengyuan, this world is big, and there is all sorts of strange things. Right now, we are only looking at the sky while sitting on the bottom of a well. Many things that we feel are impossible are actually happening in a certain part of this world. According to ancient records, on that holy land, a small-scale lake would have an area bigger than our entire continent of the 9 provinces. A single vast forest would be even vaster than countless continents of the 9 provinces. The ones surviving there are horrifying huge beasts even taller than mountains, huge birds with bodies having several miles of circumference. Even the most ordinary insect can possibly be as thick as water tanks and over 10 meters long. So, which one of the humans living in that place don't have heavenly abilities? Or else, how will they live in a land like that? There was a light smile on the face of the Jiang clan's old ancestor. The gaze he looked at Chu Feng with became more and more bright. It was because he felt that the power Chu Feng grasped very possibly belonged to the people of that land, as only they should possess it. After the Jiang dynasty's banquet, Chu Feng and the others hurried towards the Azure Dragon School. But before leaving, the monstrous Monkey King entrusted the Jiang dynasty with 2 things. The first thing was that Chu Feng needed a large amount of manpower and resources in order to rebuild the Azure Dragon School. The second thing was to use its name to find the 5 monster kings of the 1,000-monster mountain by declaring it to the world and telling the 5 monster kings to lead all the monstrous beasts in the 1,000-monster mountain to hurry towards the Azure Dragon mountain range to join up with him. Naturally, the Jiang dynasty unhesitantly agreed to the 2 requests from the monstrous Monkey King. After a period of hastening, Chu Feng and the others finally returned to the Azure Dragon mountain range. But in order to prevent the Azure Dragon founder from being displeased, Chu Feng didn't tell the monstrous Monkey King about the Azure Dragon founder still surviving the world. So, Chu Feng first entered the 1,000-bone graveyard and told the Azure Dragon founder that he asked for a purple cloak world spiritist and that it could save Su Ru and Su Mei. He also asked whether the Azure Dragon founder wanted the purple cloak world spiritist to help him recast his physical body or not. "Oh, Chu Feng, recasting a physical body is not a small matter. I don't want to trouble outsiders. Besides, I've waited for 1,000 years, a few more won't make much of a difference. So, I'll still wait until you become a purple cloak world spiritist before recasting my physical body for me. As for the news of me still being in this world, unless there is no other choice, do not tell anyone. Right now, I will relay a formation and take my physical body and the treasure pearl deeper into this emperor tomb. However, after taking away the treasure pearl, the ice and fire pearls in Su Ru's and Su Mei's bodies will not be stable. So, you must immediately call the purple cloak world spiritist in. I'm sure with his methods, he should be able to protect Su Ru's and Su Mei's lives." Indeed, as he predicted, the Azure Dragon founder refused the assistance of the monstrous Monkey King, as he hoped that they wouldn't know about his survival. "I shall obey your order," Chu Feng respectfully responded, then quickly after, helped the Azure Dragon founder undo the current formation. After taking out his physical body and the mystical pearl, he relayed a formation to seal Su Ru and Su Mei. But without the power of the mystical pearl, it was very difficult to suppress the ice and fire pearls in Su Ru's and Su Mei's bodies purely with the power of the formation. In only an instant, the sealing formation was taken over by blue-colored frost and scorching flames. They endlessly made howls like tigers and leopards, started to insanely charge towards the formation, and wanted to break out. In a situation like that, Chu Feng had no choice but to quickly ask the monstrous Monkey King to enter, to let the purple cloak world spiritist control the situation. The Azure Dragon founder's speed was also very quick. Before the monstrous Monkey King came down, he had already moved his own physical body and the mystical pearl deep into the 1,000-bone graveyard. Only with that did he prevent the monstrous Monkey King from discovering his physical body and the mystical pearl. "These 2 pearls are very powerful, Chu Feng. Where did these pearls come from?" After the monstrous Monkey King entered the 1,000-bone graveyard and saw the power of the ice and fire, it was endlessly shocked. "I found them deep in the 1,000-bone graveyard. Monkey bro, how is it? Can you save Su Ru and Su Mei?" Seeing the monstrous Monkey King's shocked expression, Chu Feng lightly furrowed his brows, being a bit worried. I'm not sure. These two pearls are too powerful, much more powerful than elite armaments, and they are living objects. Right now, they have already merged with your two wives' bodies, so it's impossible to want to take them out. I can only use special sealing formations to temporarily seal them. As for whether it will succeed or not, that'll depend on your two wives' physical state and willpower. If it succeeds, then the two pearls' power can be temporarily suppressed. If it fails, then the two pearls will thoroughly take over their physical bodies and be revived. At that time, not only will they die, we will be dragged down with them as well. Even the entire continent of the 9 provinces, possibly even the continents outside of this continent, will enter danger. It's because these pearls are too powerful. I feel like their true power have been sealed. They are filled with evilness, and their resentments are extremely deep. If they were to be unsealed, the living will definitely enter hell. That will be very terrifying. I simply don't even dare to imagine it. However, if I lay another sealing formation and seal your two wives along with the pearls, it can stop their revival. However, the price is that your two wives will also die. Chu Feng, make a choice, to risk it or to not risk it. Just say it and I'll do it. The monstrous Monkey King said with a face filled with solemnness. It was the first time Chu Feng saw the monstrous Monkey King show such an expression. Chu Feng, I'm begging you, save my daughters, don't let them die. Chu Feng, I'm also begging you, save my two sisters. They love you so deeply, so how can you bear letting them die? Hearing those words, Su Ru and Su Mei's father and elder brother had actually knelt onto the ground with a poof and started to beg. Chu Feng, this is not a small matter. I urge you to value the big picture. Yeah, Chu Feng, this wager is too big, do not make it. Because if it is lost, not only us, even the entire continent will be affected. But after knowing how horrifying the two pearls were, there were also people who spoke to urge Chu Feng. Their intentions were to get Chu Feng to directly seal the two pearls, and simultaneously sacrificing Su Ru's and Su Mei's lives. Chu Feng, as a man, don't pay attention to the small matters in life. For all things, the big picture must be valued. And seeing the more and more surging frost and flames in the sealing formation, there were even more people who were scared. They started to urge him otherwise, because if the sealing failed, obviously, they were going to be the first ones to be sacrificed. God damn, are you even people? Junior Chu Feng views you as close ones to him, but now you want him to watch the ones he loved die. Just at that time, Zhang Tianyi was enraged as he pointed at the crowd and furiously howled. The words cannot be spoken like that. Su Ru and Su Mei are close people to him, but we aren't. Some members of the Chu family retorted. Chu Cheng, Chu Zhen, Chu Mingsheng, all of you shut up. Chu Guyu fiercely glared at the Chu family members, then said to Chu Feng, brother, save Su Ru and Su Mei. They are in this state because of you, so you must save them. Chu Feng, you have to save Su Ru and Su Mei. At worst, we'll just die with them. Our lives were saved by you after all. Chu Yu also spoke to advise. Chu Guyu, Chu Yu, the two of you cannot decide if we live or die, and even more so, you cannot choose the fate of the billions of lives on this continent. Brother Chu Feng, you must think clearly. That senior has already said that if the two pearls are revived, the entire continent of the 9 provinces, even beyond, will meet with disaster. At that time, you will become a person whose crimes are forever remembered. Even more people started to urge Chu Feng to give Su Ru and Su Mei up. All of you shut up. Does Chu Feng need your interruptions when deciding? I'll kill whoever speaks more right now. Just at that time, Ziling became furious. Her purple pupils flashed as she pointed at the crowd and fiercely yelled. At the same time, her purple-colored aura also pounced out like a fierce beast. When that aura was burst out, the people on scene, other than Chu Feng, Zhang Tianyi, and the monstrous Monkey King, were all pushed continuously back from the charge. There were even some people who got heavily injured, and at that instant, everyone on scene shut their mouths because they could feel how terrifying Ziling was at that moment. Her killing intent was unfelt by them before, so they knew if they dared to speak anymore, Ling would definitely, unhesitantly, kill them. Therefore, everyone chose to remain silent. No one dared to speak anymore as they cast their gazes towards Chu Feng, awaiting his decision. At that very instant, Chu Feng closed his eyes and shot his mind towards his own spiritual world. He stood within the world's spirit space, faced Eggy and asked, "Eggy, are these ice and fire pearls truly as powerful as how Monkey Bro said they are? I am not a world spiritist, so I don't have spirit power. I have no way of checking how powerful the hidden power of the pearls are, but I having this feeling that these two pearls aren't simple. That little monkey monster is a purple cloak world spiritist. His spirit power is already not weak, and since he has said that, I'm sure that those two pearls shouldn't be simple things. After all, the master of this emperor tomb is a not simple character already, so how can the things he leave behind be weak?" Eggy said, "I understand." As Chu Feng spoke and with a thought he cast his mind back to his body, he opened his eyes and spoke, "Everyone here, please stay far away from this place and go outside first. Because, no matter what Chu Feng, must save Su Ru and Su Mei. Even if there is only a single strand of hope, even if the price of failure means a calamity for the entire continent, I must save them. This." Hearing Chu Feng's words, everyone on scene unnervingly looked at one another while being at a loss, especially the people before who urged Chu Feng to give Su Ru and Su Mei up. Their expressions were very complicated, but ultimately, not a single person chose to leave. From the beginning to the end, they stood there and didn't even move half a step. "Brother Chu Feng, I, Chu Y, do indeed fear death, but I respect your decision. I also see you as a brother. So no matter if it will fail or not, I will be by your side and accompany you through life or death." Chu Y said, "That's right, Chu Y is correct. Chu Feng, don't worry and go ahead. No matter what the result is, we will support you." "Yeah, Junior Chu Feng. The reason why we can live up to today is all because we relied on you. At a time like this, how can we abandon you? Junior Chu Feng, my strength is useless, so I am unable to be of any help for you. However, I will use my heart to support you. I won't leave this place." But what surprised Chu Feng was when he truly made the decision. No matter if it was the people who urged him to save Su Ru and Su Mei, or the people who urged him to give them up, at that instant, they were actually all supporting his decision. It had to be said that when facing the crowd's support, which disregarded whether they died or lived, Chu Feng's heart was very warm because it at least meant he didn't look at them as family for nothing, and that what he did for them wasn't for nothing. Even though some of them were cowardly, even though some of them had selfish hearts, they were people worthy of his trust, and were people who would stand out for him in the crucial moments. Boom, but just at that time, a huge explosion suddenly resonated out. The frost and flames within the spirit formation actually broke through the spirit formation and surged out. The blue-colored frost and red-colored flames interweaved, formed a wave of cold and hot air, and engulfed everything. All of you quickly leave. The farther you are, the better. Seeing that, the monstrous Monkey King explosively shouted, and at the same time, his hands were continuously changing as he struck out strange hand seals. Coincident with that, vast purple-colored spirit formation, also like a tide, surged out from its body and had actually sealed the frost in flames. "Monkey Bro, I'll stay behind to help you," Chu Feng said. "I'll stay behind as well." Ling also said, "No. With the spirit formation power that you two grasp, you will be of no help. Staying behind will only add to the trouble. Quickly leave everyone out, or else I will be unable to use my full strength and be controlled by these two pearls." But at that instant, the monstrous Monkey King's face was actually filled with sweat. Within his blood-red eyes, a hint of fear actually appeared. At that instant, everyone was taken aback. They didn't know if they should leave or not. So almost everyone cast their gaze towards Chu Feng. "Monkey Bro, can you protect their lives?" Chu Feng tightly knitted his brows. He had never seen the monstrous Monkey King in that state. His image of the monstrous Monkey King was an existence that didn't fear the heavens nor the earth. But he could understand the monstrous Monkey King's current state, because he already felt how terrifying the power of the two pearls were. It was indeed as it said. The two pearls' true power was sealed, and they weren't completely unsealed. If they were completely unsealed, not to mention the monstrous Monkey King, it was likely that in the continent of the 9 provinces, no one could do anything about the two pearls. So Chu Feng was very worried. He was worried that even with the monstrous Monkey King's methods, it would not be able to save the current Su Ru and Su Mei. Damn boy, don't worry. Even if I, your monkey bro, put my life on the line, I will do my best to protect your 2 wives. Quickly leave. You will only distract me by staying here and hold back my methods. The monstrous Monkey King turned its head, and a reliable smile was formed from its mouth corners raising. Then I'm counting on you. We will all leave this place and wait outside of the Azure Dragon mountain range. In response, Chu Feng didn't hesitate as well. He turned around, shouted, then went first and ran towards the exit of the 1,000-bone graveyard. At the same time, the others also quickly followed him one after the other. They hurriedly escaped to the outside, because they were all able to feel the aura of the ice and fire pearls. The horrifying aura did indeed make them tremble from fear. Asterisk boom asterisk asterisk wua asterisk just as Chu Feng and the others arrived at the entrance. From the deep part of the 1,000-monster mountain abruptly came an explosion. At the same time, deafening cries also started to sound. The noises were very terrifying. They seemed like the howl of beasts, yet like the cry of ghosts. All in all, they weren't noises made by humans. The most important thing was that despite coming from a very far place, people could feel the strange aura of cold and hot coexisting. That aura almost permeated throughout the 1,000-bone graveyard, causing the incomparable hard walls of the 1,000-bone graveyard to start to sway, as if they were afraid, and also causing them to endlessly tremble. Chu Feng, what should we do? The two pearls wouldn't have successfully escaped, right? At that instant, many people panicked. They didn't know what move was the right one, so they all cast their gazes towards Chu Feng. Don't worry, Monkey Bro should still be able to take care of it. Let's go. Chu Feng's eyes surged with radiance. Then, after tightly starting deep at the 1,000-bone graveyard for a good while, he still leaped, stepped into the exit, and led the crowd away from the 1,000-bone graveyard. Because, with his sharp spirit power, Chu Feng was able to feel that the monstrous Monkey King was still completely fine at present. Although the power of the ice and fire pearls was very strong, it was still within the monstrous Monkey King's grasp. After Chu Feng and the others left the 1,000-bone graveyard, they didn't head far for escaping. With special methods, all of them rushed up to the clouds and closely watched the changes to the 1,000-bone graveyard. And shortly after Chu Feng and the others rushed up into the sky, from the 1,000-bone graveyard in the Azure Dragon mountain range, endless rumbling rang out. The noises got louder and louder. They were like bells at first, then like thunder later on. At the end, even the boundless big mountains started to sway. Countless deep cracks spread on the mountains, causing several peaks to split and innumerable boulders to roll down. Rolling dense smoke charged straight into the sky. As they looked, Chu Feng, Ziling, and Zhang Tianyi all broke out in a cold sweat, let alone the people from the Azure Dragon School and the Chu family members. Cold sweat kept on forming from fright, and their bodies were trembling. Some people even lost the ability to stand because at the same time the explosions rang out. 3 waves of boundless, horrifying aura also came spreading over, enveloping that place. However, that was still the result of Chu Feng and Ling combining powers to lay a spirit formation. If that spirit formation wasn't there, just with those 3 auras, they could have forcibly crushed many people there to death. What level of power is this? Seeing the vast mountains endlessly crumbling and collapsing, becoming rolling dense smoke, and even the outside of the mountain range was affected by the boundless aura, Chu Feng also felt shocked. He hiddenly sighed in his heart. Luckily, the area beyond the Azure Dragon mountain range was already destroyed by the Sword God Valley, causing there to be no one living within the borders of the Azure Dragon Mountain Range. Or else, there would definitely be countless people dying today again. This is not even close when compared to your actions back then in the Sword God Valley. But just at that time, a voice suddenly entered Chu Feng's ears. Turning his eyes over, he saw Zhang Tianyi smilingly looking at himself. At that instant, Chu Feng could only helplessly smile because on that day, when the power of the divine lightning was shown, Chu Feng already lost his awareness, so even he himself didn't know how terrifying the destruction on that day was. In reality, up until now, he hadn't went back to the Sword God Valley. He hadn't seen the destruction he did himself, and had only heard them from Zi Ling's, Zhang Tianyi's, and Egge's mouths. Boom, suddenly, another deafening explosion resounded, and the entire Azure Dragon Mountain Range trembled. After the dense smoke dispersed, Chu Feng and the others astonishedly discovered in the location of the Thousand Bone Graveyard. It had already collapsed. That area had already become a mini valley. At that instant, they tightly frowned. Although the Thousand Bone Graveyard was located underground, so no matter how much deeper the valley went, it wouldn't cause the Thousand Bone Graveyard to appear. The changes happening to the current Azure Dragon Mountain meant that the monstrous Monkey King was undergoing a frightening huge battle against the two pearls, and the might of that huge battle was already so strong that it engulfed the entire Azure Dragon Mountain Range, and even the places beyond the Azure Dragon Mountain Range was affected. The great battle lasted for 1 day and 1 night. Finally, at noon on the second day, it started to gradually calm down, and when the Azure Dragon Mountain Range that had trembled for 1 full day and 1 full night returned to its former tranquility, the mountain range no longer seemed similar to before. Before, it had already experienced the ruin of the Sword God Valley, and now it bore the aftermath of the battle between the monstrous Monkey King and the Ice and Fire Pearls. Although the current Azure Dragon Mountain Range was still a vast mountain range, it no longer had its previous steep atmosphere. The number of strange peaks were few within few. Instead, many valleys appeared. Although that Azure Dragon Mountain Range seemed a bit weak, in reality, it was more suitable for humans to live, more suitable for school rebuilding because there were even more mountaintops that could be opened up for use. But Chu Feng and the others did not have the mind to admire a bald mountain peak. They were worried about the safety of the monstrous Monkey King, Su Ru, and Su Mei. They were thinking whether the Ice and Fire Pearls were sealed or not. However, no one dared to go down because they didn't know how it was in the Thousand Bone Graveyard. They didn't know if it was safe or dangerous inside. This won't work. I can't keep on sitting here doing nothing. I'm going down. Finally, Chu Feng made his move. He leaped, became a blur of light, and from the clouds he flew towards the Thousand Bone Graveyard. Chu Feng, wait for me. Seeing that, Ziling also quickly followed and flew down. Senior Zhang, bring us down. We will follow Junior Chu Feng and live and die with him. At the same time, the disciples of the Azure Dragon School and the others cast their gaze of asking for help towards Zhang Tianyi. School head this. At that instant, Zhang Tianyi was in a bit of a difficult situation. At the end, he could only cast his gaze towards the head of the Azure Dragon School, Lai Zhanqing. Oh Tianyi, go ahead. After all, the old ancestor is still there. We can't ignore his safety for our own right. Lai Zhanqing said, as you wish. In response, Zhang Tianyi didn't hesitate as well. He brought the Azure Dragon Schools and Chu families crowd down from the sky. Although his current cultivation was far above Lai Zhanqing's, and the two of them couldn't even be compared after all, Lai Zhanqing was the head of a school. Back then, he had also helped Zhang Tianyi quite a bit. So, Zhang Tianyi was the same as Chu Feng. He respected Lai Zhanqing a lot, and he also followed his orders. While the crowd was descending, Chu Feng already opened the entrance to the Thousand Bone Graveyard. So the crowd, with tense emotions, walked back into the Thousand Bone Graveyard. Heavens, isn't this a bit too scary? At that very instant, after re-entering the Thousand Bone Graveyard, almost everyone's expression couldn't help but greatly change. Even Chu Feng, Zi Ling, and Zhang Tianyi, the three people who had many experiences of the world, tightly furrowed their brows and felt bursts of uneasiness in their hearts. It was because the thousand-bone graveyard was the entrance to the Emperor Tomb. It was a place that the Azure Dragon founder made changes to when he was in his peak times. In this place, the degree of hardness was extremely impressive. Even if it was Chu Feng, Zi Ling, or even Zhang Tianyi, they were unable to damage the walls in the slightest. But at that very instant, there were thick cracks on the surrounding walls in the thousand-bone graveyard. Countless shattered rocks rolled around, covering the ground. The hall that originally had overbearing might was currently unrecognizable, being in complete chaos. But Chu Feng at that moment didn't care about those things. He hurriedly walked deeper into the thousand-bone graveyard, and the deeper he went, the depressing situation became even more serious. Finally, Chu Feng and the others arrived to where the monstrous Monkey King and Su Ru and Su Mei were before. The walls and ground they were destroyed beyond recognition. What occupied the surrounding space were marks of fire burning past, as well as a large area of frost. And the monstrous Monkey King was currently sitting cross-legged at the most catastrophic middle zone. Its special clothes were almost completely fragmented, and on its fur there were traces of being burnt by fire, and there were also remnants of slush. Its face was as pale as paper, and there was even a trace of blood remaining on the corners of its mouth. Clearly, he was heavily injured, but luckily, the monstrous Monkey King was still living, and behind him there was a very powerful purple-colored spirit formation. Faintly, one could see two figures inside the spirit formation. It was Su Ru and Su Mei. Also, the two of them still had the auras of life. "Monkey bro, are you all right?" At that instant, Chu Feng quickly went up to the monstrous Monkey King. His heart ached and was grateful. It was because the scene in front of him already told Chu Feng everything. After an intense battle, it was still the monstrous Monkey King that gained the advantage. He had already successfully sealed the ice and fire pearls in Su Ru's and Su Mei's bodies. Those two girls were temporarily safe, but because of that, the monstrous Monkey King still clearly paid an extremely heavy price. So that was why Chu Feng was both grateful, but his heart also ached, feeling shame at the same time. "Boy, don't look at me with a face like a bitter melon. I won't die anytime soon. However, this is luckily because the power of the two pearls were sealed. Or else, not to mention me, even those in the Martial Lord realm wouldn't be able to defeat those two pearls. Go check on your two wives. In a few days, they should reawaken. Perhaps they could even gain some benefits from those two pearls." There was still the reliable smile on the monstrous Monkey King's face, but after speaking those words, it shut its eyes, its body fell, and it entered an unconscious state. "Monkey bro." Seeing the monstrous Monkey King lose consciousness, Chu Feng instantly panicked. He supported the monstrous Monkey King, and at the same time, everyone came up and surrounded them. The gazes they looked at the monstrous Monkey King were filled with worry. Even though other than Chu Feng, Zi Ling, and Zhang Tianyi, no one else there was really familiar with the monstrous Monkey King. They all knew that the expert with a strange appearance did an extremely impressive thing. It was suppressing the horrifying ice and fire pearls and saving Su Ru and Su Mei, who were deeply loved by Chu Feng. Even the Azure Dragon founder was unable to do that thing. So they felt both grateful and respect towards the monstrous Monkey King, and knew that it was a very outstanding expert. And after a while of checking, Chu Feng, Zi Ling, and the others couldn't help calming down. Although the current monstrous Monkey King was extremely weak, and its injuries were not light as well, there was no threat to its life. The reason why it was in that state was because it used too much heaven power and spirit power. In that situation, as long as it carefully took care of itself, it would be able to be healed. Only after stabilizing the monstrous Monkey King's situation did Chu Feng come in front of the purple-colored formation with Zi Ling to detailedly observe the situation within the formation. The formation was very beautiful and also very strong. There were over 10,000 types of symbols that converged together to form the purple-colored spirit formation. Every single one was as if it was granted life, flickering with faint radiance. Like the stars, they spiraled around an already set orbit within the purple-colored spirit formation. Through the gaps of the spirit formation, Chu Feng was able to see the situation within the formation. Su Ru and Su Mei were tranquilly lying inside. They had actually recovered their former beautiful appearances. Frost faded away for one, flames faded away for the other. One became beautiful and cute, one became pure and amiable. Even though their faces were very pale, even though their auras were still very weak, they truly returned to their former appearances. Also, the pearls in their bodies were gradually stabilizing, as special power was harmonizing with their bodies. Monkey bro, this time it is truly thanks to you. At that instant, Chu Feng cast his gaze towards the monstrous Monkey King sleeping behind him, and his face was filled with expressions of gratitude. A few days after the ice and fire pearls were sealed in Su Ru's and Su Mei's bodies, the monstrous Monkey King's body had recovered, and also at that time, the army of the Jiang dynasty actually descended from the sky and came to the currently desolate Azure Dragon mountain range that was a complete mess. Quickly after, the Qilin Prince's mansion also sent out a large group of men. So they were here to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. The Jiang dynasty asked for the best craftsmen in the continent of the 9 provinces, and even sent out a grand army of 10,000 to help the construction. The Qilin Prince's mansion also similarly sent out a grand army of near 10,000 people. Also, they gathered the best craftsmen within the borders of the Azure province to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. That news soon spread throughout the continent of the 9 provinces. The Jiang dynasty personally inviting first-class craftsmen and sent out 10,000 dynasty experts to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. That inconceivable thing naturally shocked the continent of the 9 provinces. Have you heard of it? Chu Feng is going to rebuild the Azure Dragon School. I heard about it. I even heard that the Jiang dynasty personally invited first-rate craftsmen experts from all areas of the 9 provinces to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. Not only that, the Jiang dynasty even sent out several tens of thousands of dynasty experts, and from what I've heard, they are all in the profound realm. Several tens of thousands of profound realm experts. Can you imagine that formation? Several tens of thousands of profound realm experts doing physical labor, constructing a school for someone. Have you ever heard of something like this before? Heavens, are the things you're saying true or false? That's a bit too much, isn't it? No matter how much more overpowering Chu Feng is, he shouldn't be able to make the Jiang dynasty send out so many people, right? In the current continent of the 9 provinces, all sorts of rumors rose everywhere. Some said the truth, some made up nonsense, very exaggeratedly spreading them. And after knowing about that, many young people who idolized Chu Feng clearly didn't confirm whether the rumors were true or false. Yet they headed towards the Azure province without stopping nonetheless. They prepared to join the Azure Dragon School to check out their idol. Of course, there were also many people who didn't believe that and actually didn't care about hurrying for several tens of thousands of miles to come to the Azure province in order to get to the bottom of it, wanting to destroy the rumors. However, when the people who didn't believe it came to the Azure Dragon mountain range, they were instantly stupefied. It was because on the current Azure Dragon mountain range, not only were the army of the Jiang dynasty and the Qilin Prince's mansion doing giant constructions, there were even many people from the World Spirit Guild. Not only did the World Spirit Guild send out a large batch of experts, it even sent out Blue Cloak World Spiritists to come forth to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. Every single inch and millimeter for almost every single building had spirit formations added onto them, and they were even blue-colored spirit formations. That also meant that not only was the Azure Dragon School Chu Feng was rebuilding incomparably grand and beautiful, it was also very firm and indestructible. What? Even the people from the World Spirit Guild has come to help Chu Feng. This Chu Feng has too much face, doesn't he? What do you even know? Chu Feng was originally a part of the World Spirit Guild. Besides, a few days ago, the one who saved the World Spirit Guild was Chu Feng. Right now, Chu Feng wants to rebuild the Azure Dragon School, so it is natural that the World Spirit Guild sends out some manpower. The words cannot be said like so. Yes, Chu Feng saved the World Spirit Guild, but after all, he is in the young generation. Those Blue Cloak World Spiritists are very proud existences. I believe you should know that. Yet Chu Feng is able to ask for them. We have to admit that this is too impressive. Within a luxurious tavern, a group of martial cultivation experts discuss the news of Chu Feng rebuilding the Azure Dragon School. All of you are truly overreacting to small things. A few Blue Cloak World Spiritists are nothing. I heard that even Gu Tianchen has gone there, not to mention the World Spirit Guild's elders. A rather imposing big man with decent cultivation spoke. After hearing the big man's words, the people within the tavern were all dumbfounded and endlessly shocked. That doesn't mean anything. Gu Tianchen's life was saved by Chu Feng, so it's normal for him to help Chu Feng. It would be strange if he didn't. Just at that time, on another table, a young man wearing white clothes disdainfully said, "Oh, brother, hearing your words, you seem to know even more explosive news, huh?" Seeing that someone was actually interrupting when he spoke, the big man instantly revealed displeased expressions. "That's right. If even news like these aren't much, then go ahead and say some even better ones." At the same time, the big man's pals were as if they had swords drawn and bows bent. They cast their unkind gazes towards the white-clothed young man, and facing the crowd's attitude, the white-clothed young man was not afraid in the slightest. He cast his gaze towards the white-clothed old man next to him and said, "My school's head just came back from the Azure province, incidentally past the Azure Dragon mountain range, and saw a scene that none of you know about. This one. Could it be that you're the expert in the first level of the Heaven Realm, the head of the White Mountain School, Senior White?" When the big men noticed the old man, all of them couldn't help taking a few steps back and revealed expressions of fear. "That's right, I am by xianxia." The old man smugly smiled and afterwards lightly flicked his sleeves. A burst of boundless heaven power was instantly released, causing the tavern to shake. Other than himself and the white-clothed young man, everyone in the tavern fell on the ground and were powerless to stand. "Senior White, have mercy. Senior White, have mercy. We had eyes but didn't recognize Mount Tai. Senior White, we ask that as a great character, you forgive our mistakes and give us a chance to start anew." Feeling the old man's powerful heaven realm strength, everyone was endlessly terrified and kept on begging. "A group of young ones aren't worth it for me, by xianxia, to start a massacre. All of you rise." The old man smugly smiled, then flicked his sleeve again, causing the heaven power scattered about to return to this body. He raised the chopsticks on the table and continued eating. At that instant, the people on the ground were finally able to stand back up. They looked at one another, and their expressions were of panic and terror, but no one chose to leave. They stood where they were, fearfully looking at the white-clothed old man because they were really too curious. Curious what Bai Xianqi actually saw at the Azure Dragon mountain range. The Azure Dragon School that already caused people to be endlessly shocked. What unknown things actually happened, and how shocking would those things be? CC Senior White, I wonder what you saw in the Azure province. Can you tell us? Finally, one big man couldn't bear the curiosity in his heart and asked stutteringly with a face filled with fear. Hearing someone ask about it, the white-clothed old man was not angry as he put down the chopsticks in his hand and swept his gaze over the crowd. Seeing the crowd's intrigued gazes, the smug expression on the old man's face couldn't avoid becoming stronger. Only then did he speak. "Whatever. This will be known sooner or later, and since all of you want to know so much, there's no harm in telling you. Actually, in the current Azure Dragon mountain range, there is not only men from the Qilin Prince's Mansion, World Spirit Guild, and Jiang Dynasty helping Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. within the formation of people who are carrying out the enormous construction project. Other than the human craftsmen with outstanding workmanship, cultivators with powerful cultivation, and world spiritists who grasp spirit formation power, I even saw innumerable huge monsters. Their howls shook the land, and their strengths were incomparable powerful. The smallest was still at least several meters tall, and the larger ones were over 10 meters tall. And such powerful monsters were actually on the Azure Dragon mountain range doing labor work. Also, they didn't even mind it. They were happy doing that and weren't tired. Monsters over 10 meters tall, that were they monstrous beasts. Where did the monstrous beasts come from to be so powerful, to have such enormous bodies? At that instant, all of them revealed shocked expressions. That's right. They are indeed monstrous beasts. There was also an extremely large number of monstrous beasts. At least from what I saw, they were counted by 10,000s. The white-clothed old man smugly said, "Monstrous beasts counted by 10,000s. Where in the world did so many monstrous beasts come from?" And hearing those words, they were even more shocked. I know. It must be the monstrous Monkey King, the mysterious expert that defeated Gu Tianchen and Jie Shi 100 years ago. The monstrous Monkey King, the real monster king of the Thousand Monster Mountain. It is definitely it. It's definitely the one that called the monstrous beasts from the Thousand Monster Mountain to help Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. After all, there are rumors saying that the monstrous Monkey King is Chu Feng's big brother. Finally, someone noticed it and guessed the origin of the monstrous beasts. Seeing someone truly guessing the origin of the monstrous beasts, the white-clothed old man lightly smiled, and as he stroked his own beard of several strands, he said, "That's right. He's correct. The strength of those monstrous beasts were very strong. Numbers like that, strength like that indeed. Only the monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain have such characteristics. But that's not much. I even heard some news that I believe will definitely shock all of you. It's that the monstrous Monkey King announced it will be a guest elder for the Azure Dragon School, and that the monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain will also all move to the Azure Dragon mountain range to serve the Azure Dragon School. The peerlessly powerful monstrous beasts that disregard all laws will become the protectors of the Azure Dragon School and live and die with it." What? There's actually something like this. The monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain are very terrifying. From what I've heard, the 5 great monster kings are powerful existences in the 5th level of the heaven realm. And at first, even the prestigious villa didn't dare to start conflicts against the monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain. And right now, the monstrous Monkey King that has come into this world again is even more unimaginably horrifying. With its own strength, it shifted the tides of the war regarding the 5 great powers and the World Spirit Guild. Even Jie Shi was killed by it. And I've heard that even the emperor of the Jiang dynasty fears it. A Thousand Monster Mountain like that can be said to be invincible, and right now, the horrifying monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain are actually joining the Azure Dragon School. This is simply inconceivable. Powerful, really too powerful. The school hasn't even been rebuilt, yet there is already such a formation, such presence. When that Azure Dragon School finishes being constructed, wouldn't it become the #1 school of the 9 provinces? In the continent of the 9 provinces, other than the Jiang dynasty, what could defeat it? Knowing that news, not a single person there didn't greatly change their expressions. All of them were dumbfounded, and shock filled their eyes. Some people's body even trembled from purely hearing that news, being thoroughly dumbstruck. But in reality, the things that the white-clothed old man said were the truths. News like that, with the Azure province as the center, was currently spreading to all places of the continent of the 9 provinces. At the end, when it finished spreading throughout the 9 provinces, it then shocked the entire continent once again. Although the current Azure Dragon School hadn't been constructed yet, it had to be said that right now, it already became the #1 school in many experts and powers' eyes. The monstrous beasts of the Thousand Monster Mountain joined, and it had the protection of the Jiang dynasty. Who could defeat such a school? Not to mention the Ga clan, Yuangong School, Fire God School, Free and Unrestrained Valley and Hidden White Sect, the already fallen powers, even the prestigious Villa and World Spirit Guild that were still in their peak times, were far from being comparable to the current Azure Dragon School. The Azure Province, the land that had been desolate for several hundred years, finally stepped back onto the peak stage of the 9 provinces. The Azure Dragon School, the school that had been desolate for several hundred years, finally became the #1 school of the 9 provinces once again. And all that was because of a young man, Chu Feng. It had to be said that Chu Feng became the focus of discussion for people again. They started to think back to Chu Feng's actions, think back to the astounding achievements he did, and started to compare him to the historical great characters of the 9 provinces. Finally, they ended with a conclusion. Chu Feng was even more powerful than the historical great characters in the continent of the 9 provinces. Many of those characters, including the Azure Dragon founder, didn't have too big achievements before the age of 20, and they all got famous in their later periods. But Chu Feng was different. He was only 17 years old, yet he had already left many legends in the continent of the 9 provinces and stood on the peak of fame. Even the Jiang dynasty had to give him some face, and even the immeasurably strong, monstrous Monkey King was his big brother. So people felt that Chu Feng was the most horrifying person in the continent of the 9 provinces. Chu Feng had potential that the historical great characters didn't have, and his future achievements was even unimaginable and incalculable, and people felt very fortunate that they personally saw the birth of a great character. Although the road Chu Feng walked on wasn't even, he did indeed succeed. From an unknown outer court disciple with a petty identity in the Azure province, he grew step by step. He first became the #1 disciple of the Azure Dragon School, then his name shocked the Azure province, and ultimately, he became a legendary character that every family knew in the entire continent. Chu Feng's speed of growth was indeed astonishing. Despite at present, he couldn't be said to be the #1 person in the continent of the 9 provinces. Despite at present, his identity was still of a young generation. Everyone knew that the potential Chu Feng had would allow him to step onto an unprecedented peak. No matter if it was the current powerful people or the historical powerful people, they were all going to be surpassed by Chu Feng one by one, and no one then would be comparable to him. The current Azure Dragon School, under Chu Feng's lead, had its former glory reappear. Although the school hadn't finished construction yet, young geniuses from all areas of the 9 provinces had already come to the Azure Dragon Mountain ranging, wanting to enter the Azure Dragon School. Facing that situation, the Azure Dragon School could only push the examination forward. As the school hadn't been completely built, they started to recruit disciples. After all, it was a school for humans, so they couldn't only rely on the monstrous beast from the 1,000-monster mountain for face. Recruiting disciples was an absolute necessity. Besides, within those who wanted to join the Azure Dragon School, many were of extreme good talent. They were a lot more excellent than many of the disciples before in the Azure Dragon School. There were even many young ones who already had the cultivation of the profound realm. That strength naturally made xianxia endlessly moved and couldn't bear missing out on that. And as the Azure Dragon School was large-scale recruiting disciple, the Azure Dragon School's elders and disciples, who left when the Qilin Prince's mansion was aiming to remove Chu Feng, and the Azure Dragon School carried hearts of hope when they came back to the Azure Dragon School. They shamelessly begged, wanting to re-enter the Azure Dragon School, but what they got was merciless refusal. The Azure Dragon School didn't give those traitors any chance, other than the elders and disciples who were willing to live and die, along with the Azure Dragon School, who entered the 1,000-bone graveyard. No matter if it was disciples or elders, the Azure Dragon School chose completely new ones and started to choose the excellent ones first. For the development of the Azure Dragon School, Chu Feng even took out 10 million profound beads as the foundation of the Azure Dragon School's development. That number really took xianxia aback, feeling as if he entered a realm of dreams. At first, he didn't even want to accept it, but as Chu Feng urged, he finally took them. After taking the 10 million profound beads, Lai Zhanqing then wanted to hand the position of school head over to Chu Feng because he knew that the many excellent young people who were willing to enter the Azure Dragon School didn't come for him, Lai Zhanqing. They came for Chu Feng. He really didn't have the qualifications to be the head of the Azure Dragon School. Continuing to be the head would really make the disciples unconvinced. But Chu Feng said that currently, the old ancestor was in this world, so sooner or later, he was going to revive. At that time, it would be fine to directly hand the Azure Dragon School over to him. He, Chu Feng, only wanted to be an ordinary disciple of the Azure Dragon School. So the position of school head still had to be temporarily held by Lai Zhanqing. Facing that situation, Lai Zhanqing didn't feel that it was good to say much more, so he could only continue being the head of the Azure Dragon School. Although he didn't say much on the surface, in his heart, he was endlessly grateful towards Chu Feng because he didn't make a mistake. The young man that many people disliked at first, currently, did indeed change the fate of the Azure Dragon School. As the Azure Dragon School, the #1 school 1,000 years ago in the 9 provinces, had its former glory reappear. Another powerful school 1,000 years ago in the Azure province was still unbearably desolate at present. It was the Void School stationed at the Void Mountain Range. Within the main hall of the Void School came a helpless sigh. That sigh was made by the head of the Void School. He sat on the chief position in the main hall, swept his gaze towards the manager elders inside the hall and said, "The Azure Dragon School has already restored its former prosperous might, but my Void School still remains unknown. Right now, we are even forced to a state where we need to move away from the Void Mountain Range because of the Lotus Flower School that has only been created for dozens of years. I truly have no face to face the founder. Lord School Head, hasn't there already been rumors that say Chu Feng is Mr. Grey Cloak of that year? No matter what's said, my Void School still has some relations with Mr. Grey Cloak. If Chu Feng is truly that Mr. Grey Cloak, we can ask for help from the Azure Dragon School. If the Azure Dragon School is willing to help, how would the little Lotus Flower School dare to forcefully occupy the Void Mountain Range?" One manager elder said, "Whatever, putting aside that it is only a rumor, even if Chu Feng is truly Mr. Grey Cloak back then, he has already given all the benevolence and assistance he could. What reason do we have to ask him for help again?" The head of the Void School smiled as he shook his head. How could he have not possibly thought of testing luck by asking Chu Feng for help? Thinking back when the Azure Dragon School first faced danger, his Void School didn't do anything. Right now, they had risen greatly. Even he himself felt that it wasn't right to go find him to cling onto him. So naturally, he wouldn't so shamelessly go do that. Lord School Head, but right now, what my Void School is facing is the loss of school territory. If the Lotus Flower School is willing to let us go when we leave the Void Mountain Range, then that's fine. But if they are not willing to, then it would be too difficult for us to turn the situation around. I'm afraid we would be reduced to a third-rate school and even possibly facing extermination. The elders painstakingly advised, "This is something that cannot be helped. Who told us to be so greedy to fight over land against that Lotus Flower School? If we didn't have malicious exchanges against the Lotus Flower School, we would not have landed in our current state." The head of the Void School had a face filled with regret. So it turned out some time ago, within an area of land on the borders of the Void School, precious ore veins was discovered. The ore veins were very valuable, and if they were mined, they could be traded for large amounts of cultivation resources, which would cause the foundation of the Void School to become stronger. But the neighboring school of the Void School, the Lotus Flower School, also discovered those ore veins. Both sides said that the ore veins should belong to themselves. So for their own interests, an unavoidable battle happened between the two second-rate schools. The Lotus Flower School had only been created for over a few dozens of years. Although their founder had some methods, He had already disappeared for dozens of years. Even if he didn't disappear, he should have died from age. As for the Lotus Flower School, their current head's strength was far from being comparable to the head of the Void Schools, and their elders' cultivation was also not as strong as the Void School's elders. Their school's foundation was also far weaker than the Void School's, so they could be said to be the most underdeveloped existence within second-rate schools. So, with might that was like breaking bamboo, the Void School beat the Lotus Flower School so badly that they were rolling around in their own excrement, and they looked like flowers withering and water flowing away. But who would have thought that in the crucial moment, just as the army of the Void School arrived within the Lotus Flower School, preparing to make them pay the price, the founder of the Lotus Flower School, the Lotus Flower Old Man, actually appeared. Not only was the old man whose age already passed 100 and should originally not be surviving nicely living, his cultivation even stepped into the 8th level of the profound realm. So it seemed that he already gained the inheritance of an expert dozens of years ago, and consumed a special pill that lengthened his life. In the past years, he kept on staying in isolation, cultivating painstakingly, and after the Lotus Flower Old Man showed himself, he didn't make things too difficult for the Void School. Not only did he not attack the people from the Void School, quite contrary, he let them back to the Void School. Facing such a magnanimous Lotus Flower Old Man, the head of the Void School felt shame in his heart. At the same time, he also expressed admiration, preparing to give the ore veins to the Lotus Flower School after returning to the school, and also to prepare heavy gifts to nicely thank the generosity of the senior. But who would have thought that it wasn't as simply as how he had imagined it? The Lotus Flower Old Man had his eyes on the Void Mountain Range. After the army of the Void School returned to the Void School, he was actually forcing the Void School to move out of the Void Mountain Range within a month and give the Void Mountain Range to his Lotus Flower School, or else he was going to start a huge massacre and kill them so much that nothing remained behind. And today was already the last day of the 1-month limit. What the Void School was facing was a situation in which they had to leave the Void Mountain Range. His Lotus Flower School is only a small school. Even saying that it's a second-rate school is praising them. If that Lotus Flower Old Man didn't get some dog crap luck and gain the inheritance of an expert, which not only extended his life greatly, and even caused his cultivation to rise greatly, how would his Lotus Flower School be able to defeat our Void School? Several manager elders said while venting their anger. Whatever, don't hold grudges. That Lotus Flower Old Man has already performed what kindness he could by not directly exterminating the Void School and only chasing us out of the Void Mountain Range. If we have to blame anything, we can only blame that our abilities are inferior to theirs. How can we blame that he got the inheritance of an expert? Pass an order down. All elders and disciples will move with me. We will move out of the Void Mountain Range. As long as my Void School has a united heart, we can rise again at the eastern mountains like the sun, no matter where we go. The head of the Void School ordered, and from then on, the several hundreds of thousands of disciples in the Void School, with the lead of the head of the Void School and the manager elders, grandly formed lines and groups, preparing to leave the Void Mountain Range. But just as they arrived at the Void School's entrance, at that place, a group of people and horses appeared. The robes those people wore were imprinted with lotus flowers. Most of their strengths were inferior to the head of the Void School, as well as the manager elders. However, the old man at front, who didn't have many strands of hair on his head, had a face full of wrinkles, was as thin as a match, and looked like a dry corpse, actually had the cultivation of the 8th level of the profound realm. In other provinces, perhaps that cultivation wasn't much, but in the Azure province, a person with that cultivation could already be called a peak expert. He was the founder of the Lotus Flower School, the Lotus Flower Old Man. Senior Lotus Flower, let us follow what we have said. I'll comply with your request and move out of the Void Mountain, so I hope that you can adhere to your promise and give my Void School path to live. The head of the Void School went up and said, when he saw the lotus flower old man. As he faced the old man in the 8th level of the profound realm, he really was afraid of him. Cuckoo 1, don't worry, naturally, I'll keep my word. But on that topic, your void school truly does have some good seedlings. Right now, you, a grand school head, are like a dog that lost its home. Can you really bear letting your disciples suffer hardships and receive contempt from others along with you? The lotus flower old man strangely smiled and said, Senior Lotus Flower, what do you mean? The head of the void school tightly furrowed his brows and felt that the situation wasn't heading towards a good direction. Haha, I don't mean anything. But I just don't hope you delay the development of so many good seedlings. The corners of the lotus flower old man's lips curled up. Then quickly after, he actually cast his gaze towards the vast ocean of people behind the head of the void school. Facing several hundred thousands of elders and disciples, he loudly said, Everyone, from today on, this void mountain range will be the Lotus Flower Mountain Range. This void school will also be changed into the Lotus Flower School. I, the Lotus Flower Old Man, can see that all of you have extraordinary aptitude, so I cannot bear seeing you suffer with these useless young ones. Thus, I am willing to open the gates to my Lotus Flower School for all of you. As long as you are willing to stay behind, anyone can join my Lotus Flower School. Not hiding anything, my Lotus Flower School has already applied to the Qilin Prince's mansion to be a first-rate school. As long as you stay behind in the future, you will be elders and disciples of a first-rate school. Who tilde. After the lotus flower old man spoke, a heated discussion was instantly stirred up in the crowd. Many void school elders and disciples looked at each other, revealing expressions of joy. Senior Lotus Flower, you've gone a bit too far by doing this. At that instant, the face of the void school's head was ashen, but he didn't dare to lash out. He himself could disregard his life, but he didn't want his own actions to affect the several 100,000 lives of the void school. Hey, I am only thinking about their future. Is that wrong? Besides, I am giving them a choice, and I haven't forced anything on them. If you're talking about going too far, the one who's doing that is you, right? Boy, you are useless yourself. Yet you still want to lead so many people in the later generation who have rather good talent. Aren't you delaying their futures? The lotus flower old man coldly smiled and said, You, the head of the void school, gnashed his teeth in anger, but ultimately he still forcibly endured it. Quickly after, he loudly howled towards the crowd behind him. Those who are willing to follow me, step out of the void school and follow me down the mountain. After the head of the void school spoke, a large portion of the manager elders walked out and stood behind him. At the same time, there were also many elders and disciples who followed, walked out of the void school, and prepared to follow him down. However, no matter if it was elders or disciples, at that very instant, the ones willing to stand behind the head of the void school, the ones willing to follow him, were only several thousand people. The remaining several 100,000 elders and disciples all stood where they were. When there was a clash between the school's interest and their own interest, those people gave the head of the void school an exact answer. You bastards! The school head treats all of you so warmly, yet you lack any loyalty and treat him so coldly. Have all of your consciences been eaten by dogs? Seeing that scene, the manager elders of the void school pointed at those elders and disciples and started to furiously condemn them. Facing the manager elders condemning, many disciples felt very ashamed and lowered their head in silence. However, some disciples and elders just loudly retorted, Elders, humans head towards highland, water flows towards lowland too, are we in the wrong? That's right, the might of the void school is already gone. If we follow you, we will only become weaker and weaker and receive the disdain of people. Senior Lotus Flower's strength is powerful. He can definitely bring us onto the road of experts. We are willing to become disciples of the Lotus Flower School and live and die along with it. Lotus Flower School, Lotus Flower School, Lotus Flower School. God damn, you despicable stuck-ups. I'll put all of you to death. At that instant, the manager elders were enraged, and as they spoke, they were going to attack. I would quite like to see who dares to touch the people from my lotus flower school. But just at that time, the lotus flower old man suddenly coldly snorted. Simultaneously, boundless profound power went wild, and like a formless fierce beast, it attacked the several manager elders who prepared to make their move. Ah, the difference in strength was too big. With only a single strike from the lotus flower old man, he threw the several manager elders dozens of meters away. All of them vomited blood and were already powerless to stand, being heavily injured. "I'll kill you." Seeing that their own elders were heavily beaten, many people who decided to follow the Void School were enraged. They wanted to fight to the death against the lotus flower old man. "Stop!" Seeing that, the head of the Void School hurriedly shouted loudly. After stopping the crowd, he looked at the several 100,000 disciples who chose to enter the Lotus Flower School and said, "Every person has their own goals. If you want to stay behind, I absolutely do not force you to come with me." After speaking those words, he walked first and prepared to leave that place. At the same time, several thousand disciples and elders also moved and quickly followed. At that instant, no matter if they were furious or felt that they were wronged, their backs gave people an extremely pitiful feeling. But the winner is the king, and the loser is the thief. No one would give them sympathy, and rather, what they gave were only mocking and cold smiles. "That's right. Leave, you homeless dogs. Let's see where in the continent of the 9 provinces you can find a home. Daring to make my Lotus Flower School an enemy. This is how you end up as." Ha ha ha. The Lotus Flower old man started to coldly laugh loudly. The meaning behind his words was very clear. He wanted the Void School to have no place to make a standing for themselves, then ultimately disappear from people's lines of sight and be thoroughly extinguished. Any place in the continent of the 9 provinces is a place for the Void School to make a standing for themselves. On the other hand, what qualifications does your Lotus Flower School have to take over this Void Mountain range? But just at that time, from the sky, a loud and clear voice that was like thunder suddenly rang out. The voice was really too loud, and it actually caused the sky and ground to tremble. Not to mention the disciples. Even the Lotus Flower old man couldn't stand stably and almost fell. When the horrifying swaying settled, everyone cast their gazes towards the sky, and when they saw the current sky, not a single person's expression on the scene didn't change greatly, as they were endlessly shocked. It was because at present in the sky, several figures stood. Those people stood on air while looking down. Every person's body emanated immensely powerful aura. They stood on air like a god. It could be said that their powerful strength, to the people of the Void School and Lotus Flower School, was as if they were gods. However, the reason why they were so shocked was because of the young man within the group of people. The young man's portrait had once been scattered throughout all places in the 9 provinces. Everyone knew who he was. He was the horrifying existence whose name shocked the 9 provinces, Chu Feng. 1. Though should be pronounced as Ga, Cuckoo seems to fit more. 2. Other than the stated meaning, highland can also mean high positions in society. Chu Feng. Seeing Chu Feng in the sky, everyone was stunned. The people from the Lotus Flower School tightly furrowed their brows because they didn't know why Chu Feng, whose name shocked the 9 provinces and was a legend-like character, came to this place. But they could see that Chu Feng did indeed have the rumored strength, or else he wouldn't be able to stand on air. Also, the people who stood around Chu Feng all had extraordinary cultivation. Every person had strength that could kill them. In addition, even if their strengths were disregarded and undiscussed, their identities and positions were terrifying. There were people from the World Spirit Guild. There was the Lord of the Qilin Prince's mansion, and there were even experts from the Jiang dynasty. My lords, Zhao Lian Hua one pays his respect. Suddenly, the Lotus Flower old man knelt onto the ground. He put away his previous arrogance and respectfully kowtowed to Chu Feng and the others, being extremely petty. "My lord, we pay our respects." At the same time, everyone came to their senses. The several 100,000 people on scene uniformly knelt on the ground. Their petty voices rang out at the same time. Like the ringing of bells, they resonated throughout that land. Chu Feng did not pay attention when he faced the crowd's kowtow. He leaped and flew down from the sky. He went up to the head of the Void School, personally propped him up and said, "Senior, I, Chu Feng, have come late. Lolo Lord Chu Feng." At that instant, there was no need to mention how excited the head of the Void School was. His eyes glittered, his body trembled, and with his disbelieving yet incomparably happy voice, he said, "Could it be that you're truly Mr. Grey Cloak?" After the head of the Void School spoke those words, almost everyone's faces changed, especially the lotus flower old man. He even started to feel uneasy. He trembled from fright, because he was already able to feel that the head of the Void School didn't seem to have a simple relationship with Chu Feng. As for the manager elders of the Void School and a group of core disciples, they were kneeling on the ground and also incomparably excited. They were awaiting Chu Feng's answer because his answer was going to change their fates. "It's me. I am Mr. Grey Cloak who asked you for help back then and also stayed in your Void School for many days." Chu Feng lightly squinted his eyes and kindly smiled. Quickly after, he cast his gaze towards the manager elders and the many disciples. "The people from the Void School, no need to be so polite. Please quickly rise." "Thank you, Lord Chu Feng." After the simultaneous thanks that was both grateful and excited, the Void School's crowd all rose. At that very instant, the faces of the manager elders and core disciples were filled with ecstasy because they knew that today, their Void School was saved. With Chu Feng's current strength and position, as long as he slightly supported their Void School, then their position in the Azure province would rise, possibly even rapidly. "Who told you to rise? Kneel back down." But just at that time, Chu Feng's face suddenly changed greatly. He pointed at the several 100,000 disciples, who were already standing within the Void School itself, and loudly yelled. His explosive shout was truly like the clap of thunder. It was so loud that even the earth trembled, the trees swayed left and right, and the beasts and birds in the mountain forest respectively ran and flew away. The several 100,000 disciples trembled in fright, and all of them hurriedly knelt back down to the ground. Their bodies kept on quivering, and they didn't even dare to raise their heads. "HMPH, I told the people from the Void School to rise. Your Lotus Flower School better kneel well. If anyone dares to stand without permission, I'll behead him right there," Chu Feng coldly said. After Chu Feng's words were spoken, everyone from the Lotus Flower School panicked because they were aware that the relationship between Chu Feng and the Void School was not ordinary. They had actually forced the Void School to such a state, so today, they were fated to have bad luck. "Senior, actually, by coming here today, I have something I want to discuss with you." Quickly after, Chu Feng cast his gaze back at the head of the Void School. "Lord Chu Feng, speak whatever you want to say. As long as I am able to do it, I will definitely assist you with anything." The head of the Void School hurriedly replied, "I want to set up an alliance between your Void School and my Azure Dragon School. Senior, I wonder if you are willing or not." Chu Feng lightly smiled and said, "What? An alliance with the Azure Dragon School?" After Chu Feng spoke, it was like a clap of thunder in a clear sky. It shocked the people on scene so much that all of them felt inconceivability. What power was the current Azure Dragon School? It was a power titled as the #1 school in the 9 provinces. It was rumored that in the continent of the 9 provinces, countless huge powers wanted to make an alliance with the Azure Dragon School, but they were all rejected. Even the overlord of the Qin province, the prestigious Villa, wanted to set up an alliance yet was refused. There were only 2 powers in an alliance with the Azure Dragon School. One was the World Spirit Guild, the other was the Qilin Prince's Mansion. There was no need to talk about the World Spirit Guild. It was one of the strongest forces in the 9 provinces. As for the Qilin Prince's Mansion, although it was far from being comparable to the World Spirit Guild, at least it was the overlord of the Azure province. But his Void School was only a tiny second-rate school. In a place like the Azure province, It was a small power that anyone could stamp on. But currently, a chance to be in alliance with the Azure Dragon School came. That truly caused people to feel disbelief. I'm willing. Oh, of course I'm willing too. The head of the Void School quickly nodded. His head was as if it was continuously kowtowing, say nothing of how happy he was. That's great. Then this is done. I have already sent an application to the Lord of the Qilin Prince's mansion to raise the Void School to a first-rate school. Moreover, the Lord of the Qilin Prince's mansion has already agreed. As he spoke, Chu Feng cast his gaze towards the sky. He looked towards the current Lord of the Qilin Prince's mansion, Chu Feng. Hearing those words, everyone from the Void School cast their gazes towards Chu Feng. Their gazes filled with excited expressions. Chu Feng lightly smiled, then said, "It is true. Although the present Void School doesn't have the strength of a first-rate school, I believe that it will soon, and also surpass most schools in the Azure province." "Thank you, Lord Chu Feng. Thank you, Mansion Lord." At that instant, the people from the Void School knelt on the ground again. Their gratefulness came from their hearts, thankful for the help Chu Feng gave them. "Ah, no need to be so polite. Quickly rise." Chu Feng waved his big sleeve, then a gust of wind came and lifted up the people from the Void School who knelt down. Then he said, "Since we are an alliance, naturally, there must be some cooperation plans. Right now, my Azure Dragon School is doing widespread disciple recruiting. However, some disciples aren't suitable to cultivate in my Azure Dragon School. Yet those disciples have pretty good talents, so my Azure Dragon School doesn't wish to waste such talents. So, from today on, for those who wish to enter my Azure Dragon School, but cannot become a disciple of my Azure Dragon School, we will introduce them to the Void School. If they are willing to, they can come to the Void School to participate in the school entry examination. Senior, I wonder if you are willing or not." I'm willing. Of course I'm willing to." The head of the Void School quickly nodded his head because he knew that it was a very rare chance. At present, the disciples who aimed to enter the Azure Dragon School were excellent geniuses from many different areas in the continent of the 9 provinces. Even if those people, because of insufficient aptitude, weren't able to become a disciple of the Azure Dragon School, to the powers of the Azure province, they were still rare geniuses. If geniuses like those were able to enter his Void School, his school would very speedily strengthen with unstoppable might. Although it would not be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Azure Dragon School, at least within the borders of the Azure province, they could quickly gain their own position in the province. 1. Xianxia equals lotus flower. Senior, since you are willing to, I will represent my Azure Dragon and sign the alliance agreement with you right now. From now on, my Azure Dragon School will share both glory and shame and advance and retreat with your Void School." As Chu Feng spoke, he took out a piece of paper. It was an alliance agreement paper. On there, conditions for the alliance between the Azure Dragon School and the Void School were written in detail. And after seeing the agreement, the head of the Void School, who was incomparably excited, hurriedly wrote the 2 big words Void School without even looking at it. Then afterwards, he pressed his handprint on it. At that instant, up and down the Void School, not a single person was not incomparably excited, because they all knew that from today on, their Void School was going to rise greatly, with the Azure Dragon School looking over them. Not to mention the little Azure province in the future. Even in the continent of the 9 province, no one would dare to anger his Void School. But as some people were joyed, some people were sorrowful. As the people from the Void School rejoiced, the several 100,000 disciples and elders who were just part of the Void School but now chose to join the Lotus Flower School were endlessly sorrowful with faces filled with regret. At that very instant, truly, their intestines greened from regret, and they even had the heart to die. They regretted that they shouldn't have been so cowardly and afraid of things, that they shouldn't have betrayed the Void School, that they shouldn't have been greedy for the enticement the Lotus Flower old man gave. It was because they didn't stand firm that they lost their chance to stand on the skies. With the mistake of a single thought, they missed a heavenly huge opportunity. Everything existed in the world, but not medicine for regret. They had to pay the price for their decisions. You're the head of the Lotus Flower School, right? After signing the alliance agreement, Chu Feng turned around with a light smile and cast his gaze towards the Lotus Flower old man. I am indeed the head of the Lotus Flower School, Zhao Lianhua. The Lotus Flower old man hurriedly replied. He was truly afraid, extremely afraid. You stand up to speak. Chu Feng's tone was very gentle. Hearing those words, the Lotus Flower old man hiddenly rejoiced and couldn't help breathe a sigh of relief, because he felt that Chu Feng didn't seem to be preparing to make things difficult for him. So he quickly stood up and endlessly saluted Chu Feng. Thank you, Lord Chu Feng. Thank you, Lord Chu Feng. Your nerves are quite big. You dare to take the land of the Void School and even forcefully take the elders and disciples from the Void School. But suddenly, Chu Feng's face turned cold. He pointed at the Lotus Flower old man and furiously rebuked, then pointed his finger towards the several 100,000 people who betrayed the Void School and said, "You like these stuck-ups who forget about favors and kindness and betrays their own school to protect themselves, right? Fine. Today, you will bring them all away from here. Bring them back to your Lotus Flower School. From now on, they are a part of your Lotus Flower School, and for their entire lives, they will be stuck with the tags of your Lotus Flower School. But you remember this, from today on, the people from your Lotus Flower School better stay in your tiny land. If they dare to take half a step out, I will kill with no discussion. My lord, have mercy, my lord, have mercy. I was ignorant, I should die, and I shouldn't have been greedy. But Lord Chu Feng, I still ask you to leave a road of life for my Lotus Flower School. After all, I didn't know that the Void School was acquainted with you. If I did, I would have never dared to oppose the Void School." At that instant, the Lotus Flower old man knelt onto the ground with a poof. He endlessly kowtowed while begging for mercy and asked for forgiveness from Chu Feng. I am already leaving a path of life by not killing all of you today. Scram. Don't think of speaking rubbish with me. If you don't scram, I'll kill you right now. Chu Feng's voice was like thunder, rumbling in bursts. At the same time, what faintly appeared was boundless aura he emanated, as well as eerie killing intent. As you wish, I'll leave right now. With that, the Lotus Flower old man thoroughly panicked. He hurriedly stood back up and led the Lotus Flower School's group, preparing to leave because he knew that if he left now, there was still a strand of survival, but if he didn't, he would undoubtedly die. Halt! But just as they walked for a few steps, Chu Feng explosively shouted again. He pointed at them and said, "Who told you to walk? I told you to scram, so roll right now. Roll down the mountain. One Chu Feng, don't bully excessively. You are only a brat, yet you dare to speak to us like this." Just at that time, a manager elder from the Lotus Flower School pointed at Chu Feng and furiously cursed. Bang asterisk, however, immediately after he spoke, that person became a mist of blood. That scene happened really too fast. No one knew who attacked, but the people from the Lotus Flower School were thoroughly terrified. My lord, spare us. We'll roll right now, we'll roll. Finally, no one dared to hesitate. With the lead of the Lotus Flower old man, the people from the Lotus Flower School started to roll down the stairs which were for climbing the mountain. What are you staring at? Why aren't you scramming? After the Lotus Flower old man rolled farther and farther away, Chu Feng pointed his finger again at the several 100,000 people still kneeling within the Void School. Schoolhead, have mercy, schoolhead, have mercy. Schoolhead, we know our wrongs. Give us a chance. Lord Schoolhead, you have watched as I grew up. You are like my father. Children will commit mistakes, so I'm begging you, please give me a chance to start anew. Those people looked at one another, but ultimately, no one moved half a step. Rather, they started to face the head of the Void School and beg, pleading for forgiveness. It was because the words Chu Feng said before were very clear. Although he didn't give a path of death to the Lotus Flower School, he didn't give a path of life to them. In the future, if the news of the Lotus Flower School offending the Azure Dragon School became known, it was likely that even without the Azure Dragon School doing anything. Many powers that wanted to set up a relationship with the Azure Dragon School would volunteer to go exterminate the Lotus Flower School. If today they truly followed the Lotus Flower old man back to the Lotus Flower School, what awaited them was definitely a path of death. This, facing the sorrowful cries of the several 100,000 elders and disciples, the head of the Void School's face showed his predicament. His heart softened. It truly softened. After all, they were elders and disciples who followed him for many years. So he turned around, cast his gaze towards Chu Feng, and wanted to plead for those people. Asterisk boom 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 asterisk. But before waiting for him to speak, Chu Feng waved his big sleeve. Then several fists were thrown out. Within the ocean of people, bursts of explosions resounded. When any of those explosions rang out, it would make berserk energy ripples. Those who got caught by the ripples would instantly become a mist of blood. Even those who didn't get caught by the ripples would be affected by the remnants. If they didn't die, they were injured. With merely a blink, several tens of thousands of people had fallen, died miserably by the hands of Chu Feng. At that instant, the people from the Void School were both shocked and terrified, because they finally saw Chu Feng's strength, the strength that was rumored to be able to kill those in the heaven realm. My lord, have mercy. My lord, have mercy. We'll roll right now, we'll roll. As the rumbling finished, not a single person who were still living dared to beg. With faces filled with fear, they ran out. And as they went up to the stairs that went down the mountain, they hurriedly rolled down. They headed downwards by rolling. So, on the Void Mountain range, a peculiar sight appeared. It was several 100,000 people rolling down from the mountains with unspeakable misery. And only after the last disciple left the school's plaza and rolled towards the mountain climbing road did Chu Feng pat the Void School head's shoulder and said, "Senior, they can betray you today, so they can still betray you in the future. If you sympathize even with these kinds of people, then in this world where the strong eats and the weak is meat, how can you make your standing?" Hearing Chu Feng's words, the head of the Void School's body couldn't help trembling. Within the gaze he looked at Chu Feng with, not only was there pure respect, there was also admiration that came from his heart. Actually, he understood the logic that Chu Feng talked about, but the human heart grew along with the human body. The number of people who could clearly separate the good and evil and kill decisively was few within few. At least he currently could not do it. But Chu Feng, the young man who was only 17 years old, was able to do that. How could he not respect him? 1. The character used for scram figuratively means, well, scram, but it literally means roll. After driving away the people of the Lotus Flower School, the head of the Void School set up a banquet to welcome Chu Feng and the others. Facing the Void School's warm welcome, Chu Feng and the others did not refuse it, because other than repaying the Void School for the favor back then, there was one other thing he came here for. It was to return to the Void School's Void Tower. At that moment, Chu Feng had already went into the Void Tower, and just as he entered, an extremely dark and faint consciousness appeared in front of Chu Feng. That person was indeed the founder of the Void School, the super expert who was able to oppose the Azure Dragon founder 1,000 years ago, Void Genren. However, the current Void Genren had already been weakened to the extreme, compared to the first time Chu Feng saw him back then. It was even possible that he could disappear at any time. His consciousness was already unable to hold on for a few more days. Senior Void Genren, this junior pays his respects. Despite the might of the super expert 1,000 years ago had already vanished, Chu Feng was still extremely respectful towards him. Young one, you are not bad. Within the short time of 2 years, you are actually able to develop to this state. You're a lot stronger than me and the old guy Azure Dragon back then. The reason you've come here today should be for my source energy, right? Void Genren floated in midair. With a light smile, he looked at Chu Feng. However, his voice was clearly very powerless. It could be seen that there was truly not many more days he could continue living for. Senior I. Facing Void Genren's questioning, Chu Feng was very speechless because it was exactly as Void Genren said. The reason why he came here was for his source energy. After all, Void Genren was a super expert. His cultivation should near the peak of the heaven realm. Source energy like that would cause Eggy's cultivation to rise greatly. Chu Feng didn't want to miss that chance, and Eggy didn't want to miss it even more. Ho, no need to feel bad. This is very normal. However, Void Genren unconcernedly smiled, then quickly after said, if it was before, I would definitely not allow anyone to absorb my source energy, because I felt that it would make me incomplete. Even today I feel the same. Source energy is the root of people. If one doesn't even have their source energy, that person would be completely dead. The things he would have remaining in this world would only be a useless skeleton. But now, I've thought it through. I am willing to let you absorb my source energy, for no other reason but because you just saved my void school. No matter if you did that because you felt you would owe me by wanting to absorb my source energy, or if you did it remembering that the void school helped you back then, I feel very relieved. Follow me. There is already not much time left for me. I'll leave these things for you. I hope you can help my void school's useless later generation a bit more so that my void school won't die out too soon. As he spoke, Void Genren floated and actually headed towards the peak of the Void Tower. Quickly after, he used his hand to touch the murals on the walls, so it seemed that the murals, which were not eye-grabbing, were actually mechanisms. They were so hidden that even the current Chu Feng was unable to detect them. From top to bottom, Void Genren activated the mechanisms. When he came back to the bottom of the Void Tower, from the surface of the rocks, a tunnel actually appeared. After following Void Genren into the tunnel, Chu Feng discovered that there was a secret room there. The secret room wasn't too big. It was squarish, but it was very majestic. In the center of the secret room, there was a coffin built by stone. That stone coffin did not have a cover, and before approaching, Chu Feng was able to feel some chilliness from within. Go ahead, those all belong to you, but after getting those, remember to help out my void school. As he spoke, Void Genren smiled relievedly, his body started to undulate, and at the end, he became strands of gas. After swirling in the air for a good while, he dispersed like smoke. He broke up his consciousness on his own accord. Right now he has already thoroughly died. Quickly let me out. I will personally refine this guy's source energy. Eggy excitedly said. Without delay, Chu Feng willed and opened the world spirit gate. Eggy's beautiful figure also became a blur of black light, immediately dashing out, then stood on top of the stone coffin. Wah, Chu Feng, that old guy didn't trick you. There are truly some treasures here. Look, at that very instant, Eggy's little face of absolute beauty was filled with the expression of joy. Without saying anything more, she opened her little mouth. Then boundless absorption power explosively surged out, and she started to absorb Void Genren's source energy. At that instant, Chu Feng also discovered that after Void Genren's consciousness was broken up, the radiance within the stone coffin actually became a bit brighter. The chilliness also increased quite a bit in power, and when Chu Feng approached, he discovered that a dry corpse laid within the stone tomb. The body of the dry corpse was covered by a layer of shattered rocks. Those shattered rocks were blue-colored, and every single one emitted chilliness a lot colder than ice. The most important thing was that within the blue-colored shattered rocks, they actually contained heaven power. The degree of heaven power denseness was extremely horrifying, and other than the heaven power, there were also some special berserk energy objects. In brief, those shattered rocks were obviously not ordinary objects. They were strange divine objects. It seems like these shattered rocks is key reason how Void Genren's consciousness survived this long. Chu Feng said. Not only that, other than these shattered rocks, this Void Tower's construct has been made with great attention. Because of the combination of the two, that's the reason why his consciousness was able to live that long. But also, he could only stay within this tower. If he were to leave, the consciousness would have immediately dispersed. Chu Feng, these shattered rocks aren't simple. The power contained within is very berserk. Normal people have no way of refining them, but you should be able to. Quickly try it out. Perhaps it can let you break into the 8th level of the profound realm. Eggy excitedly said. Eggy, you've actually entered the 2nd level of the heaven realm. But seeing Eggy, Chu Feng was a bit shocked. Before, she was clearly still in the 9th level of the profound realm. But after refining Void Genren's source energy, she actually stepped into the 2nd level of the heaven realm. After such a long time of understanding, Chu Feng had already discovered that Eggy's strength was very powerful. In terms of true battle power, she was even more powerful than Chu Feng with an elite armament. But Eggy required a lot of source energy in order to raise her cultivation, or at least compared to Zi Ling's world spirit. The source energy Eggy required was a lot more. But right now, Eggy was actually able to continuously break through 2 levels, and also from the profound realm to the heaven realm. It meant that Void Genren's source energy was indeed not simple. The old man's strength when he lived was definitely very strong. This old guy had the peak cultivation of the 8th level of the heaven realm. And because of the nourishment of these shattered rocks, not only was the slightest bit of source energy not lost, it even gained a bit of strengthening. Eggy sweetly smiled. Since her cultivation rose greatly, she was very happy as well. It seems like this time it has truly a worthy trip. At that instant, Chu Feng's face also brimmed with an excited smile. He cast his gaze back at the blue-colored shattered rocks. He felt with the heaven power that the shattered rocks contained. As long as they were refined by Chu Feng, it shouldn't be hard for him to break into the 8th level of the profound realm. Those blue-colored shattered rocks were very special. Although there wasn't many, they were very challenging to refine. Chu Feng determined that if it was a normal person, they would absolutely not have any way of refining the shattered rocks. However, the shattered rocks were not difficult to refine for him at all. With only 2 hours of time, Chu Feng completely refined the blue-colored shattered rocks. Moreover, the strangest thing was that no matter if it was the berserk power or the heaven power, they were all cleanly absorbed by the divine lightning in his dantian. The oddities that could simply not be refined in a normal person's perspective, were cultivation oddities in front of Chu Feng. Once again, this showed the strong power of the divine lightning in his body. But the most important thing was that, after refining the blue-colored shattered rocks, Chu Feng truly broke into the 8th level of the profound realm. In addition, that was when Chu Feng still hadn't refined the profound beads. The monstrous Monkey King gave Chu Feng 30 million profound beads, but Chu Feng knew that the amount of cultivation resources he required was going to get more and more terrifying. The 30 million profound beads would likely not even be close to reaching half of the necessary resources. So even if he refined them all, he would not be able to make a breakthrough. Thus, Chu Feng gave Li Zhanqing 10 million beads for developing the Azure Dragon School's more excellent elders and disciples, as well as for strengthening and developing the Azure Dragon School itself. After all, sooner or later, he was going to leave this place to head towards the Eastern Sea region. Chu Feng did not refine the remaining 20 million profound beads. He left them on him in case he required them in the future. As for the blue-colored shattered rocks, they were actually able to directly raise Chu Feng to the 8th level of the profound realm, even when there was absolutely no power in his dantian. Moreover, after breaking through, some power was accumulated within his dantian, which meant even more that the blue-colored shattered rocks were not simple. Senior, thank you. As long as I, Chu Feng, am still breathing, I will definitely make the Void School more and more prosperous. After raising his cultivation with spirit formation techniques, Chu Feng condensed a coffin cover out. On the coffin cover, he also made a spirit tablet and wrote Void Genren's grand name to express his respect and gratitude to him. Only after doing all that did Chu Feng leave the secret room, and after he closed the secret room, he walked out of the Void Tower. After Chu Feng left the Void Tower, the Void School just finished setting up the banquet, so Chu Feng and the others all took their seats. Because of Chu Feng's current status, no one from the Void School dared to ask Chu Feng what he went to the Void Tower to do. On the other hand, Ziling, who knew the reason for Chu Feng's trip, put her little mouth close to Chu Feng's ear and gently asked, "How was it? Successful? Check this out." Chu Feng lightly smiled and grabbed onto Ziling's pale little hand. Through special methods, he sent out a strand of aura into Ziling's hand. "You broke through." Feeling Chu Feng's aura of the 8th level of the profound realm, Ziling's clear eyes instantly turned round and shocked expression appeared. If Chu Feng broke into the 8th level of the profound realm 1 year ago, she would absolutely not be this shocked. But she had experienced many things with Chu Feng. After knowing Chu Feng's method of cultivation, she had to be shocked. Thinking back at first, in order to break into the 7th level of the profound realm, Chu Feng had paid a huge price. So Ziling understood very clearly that if Chu Feng wanted to make a breakthrough again, the price would be even bigger. Yet right now, he actually broke through. It meant that Chu Feng must have gotten some special harvests on his trip. That void Zhenren was still there. Although he wasn't able to leave the void tower, he was able to see the things that happened in the void school. He saw that I protected the void school and felt gratitude in his heart. So he handed the oddities, which prevented his consciousness from being destroyed for 1,000 years, to me. If those things were given to normal people, perhaps they could not directly cultivate them, and they would only have a supplementary effect. But incidentally, I was able to refine them. Chu Feng didn't hide anything. He went close to Ziling's ear and detailedly narrated the details of what happened. And after knowing everything, Ziling's mood was great. Her little face of absolute beauty from start to finish was brimming with a sweet smile. She felt happy for Chu Feng from the bottom of her heart. After all the dishes came up, the banquet officially started. It was definitely a banquet, and to thank Chu Feng and the others, it could be said that the second-rate school, the Void School, took all the delicious things and treasures out. Those dishes were not simply sumptuous foods. There were also dishes made by special materials such as spiritual medicine, origin medicine, and even profound medicine. They had the effect of helping cultivation. Although dishes like those didn't have the slightest effect on Chu Feng and the others, they at least felt the Void School's sincerity and warmth. It was because many people there were great characters, putting aside people such as Chu Feng, Ziling, Zhang Tianyi, Qi Fengyang, and the vice head of the World Spirit Guild, even Jiang Hengyuan, who stayed in the Valley of 100 Bends for many years, came. At present, Chu Feng and the others knew that actually, he was a general from the Jiang dynasty. He had the cultivation of the 7th level of the Heaven Realm, and was the Jiang dynasty's representative for helping Chu Feng rebuild the Azure Dragon School. While facing the great characters who had extremely high statuses and strengths, the people from the Void School were very restrained. They were deeply afraid that they would say something wrong accidentally and offend those great characters. They would truly not even know how they died if something like that happened. In a situation like that, Chu Feng became the bridge people connected with. The effect was really good. The more the crowd chatted, the more engaged they got, and they actually chatted from daytime to nighttime. But when it was deep in the night and when the sky was filled with stars, change appeared at the western night sky. My lords, quickly look. The sky over there is actually bright. One of the Void School elders discovered that scene first and said with shock as he pointed towards afar, "This is." When Chu Feng and the others cast their gazes towards the horizon, their pupils shrunk while their eyes couldn't avoid enlarging a lot, because they astonishedly discovered in the western night sky there was indeed a section that became bright. However, it was obviously not just a strange scenery, because the area of brightness was currently moving. Moreover, it was heading towards them. Finally, the strange body of light neared. Chu Feng and the others could clearly see that it was a huge area of flames. It covered the sky and covered the moon as it arrived. It made the sky fiery red from burning and strongly lit up the ground. Heavens, what is that? At that instant, the faces of everyone on scene changed greatly, especially the people from the Void School. They even started to scream in terror. It was because the scene in the sky was really too scary. Although they were still unable to determine what it was, They were able to feel the horror of that thing. "This is bad, it's heading towards my void school." Suddenly, someone loudly howled, and other than the banquet place, the void school was in chaos. It was because currently, the flames which covered the sky truly headed towards the void school. Before it even neared, the void mountain range was already brightly lit up as if it was day. People were able to feel the scorching hot temperature. "Everyone, do not panic. Stay where you are." At that instant, the one with the highest cultivation, Xianxia, loudly shouted. His thunder-like voice resonated inside and outside the void school. Only with that did the panicking elders and disciples settle down. However, even though he calmed the crowd, he himself was tightly frowning. His gaze flashed with expressions of uneasiness, because even if it was him, he felt endless fear when facing the huge area of flames in the sky. Asterisk rumble 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 asterisk. The flames came closer and closer, as it endlessly made rumbling noises. Along with the nearing of the rumbling noises, the flames actually started to fall, and the direction they fell towards was the void mountain range. And along with the descent of the flames, boundless might also descended from the sky. That caused the entire mountain range to start to ceaselessly tremble. The frequency of trembling increased more and more, then at the end, it was like an earthquake as it swayed left and right. "This is bad. Chu Feng Ziling, Vice Head Gao, quickly follow me." When the boundless flames streaked past above the void school and rushed towards the mountain range behind, Jiang Hengyuan explosively shouted, then quickly after flew up. Seeing that, Chu Feng and the others didn't delay as all of them quickly chased after him. Only when he came to the edge of the void school did Jiang Hengyuan stop and actually start to lay a spirit formation around the void school. At that instant, Chu Feng and the others understood. No matter what the flames were, after crashing into the ground, they would definitely create a huge ripple, and the berserk ripple would engulf the mountain range. At such a distance, the void school would not avoid a calamity as well. So they had to quickly lay a defense spirit formation in order to guard the void school when the ripple came. Or else the school that had existed for almost 1,000 years would be destroyed. Because of that, the void school was very big. Even if they only protected one side, the spirit formation would waste quite a bit of time, and according to logic, it was a mission that could not be finished. But many people on scene were blue-colored world spiritists. As they combined their powers, a single boundless blue-colored spirit formation instantly rose into the sky, guarding the edges of the void school. Wah! Such powerful methods. Are these the peak experts of the 9 provinces? Seeing the blue-colored spirit formation open afar, everyone from the void school endlessly sighed in admiration and yelled out in surprise, especially the head of the void school and the others. All of them had glittering gazes and felt never-ending shock. What they sighed in admiration for wasn't the strength of the Jiang dynasty or the World Spirit Guild, because those powers and peak characters were like gods in their hearts, and that outlook was firmly rooted. What they sighed in admiration for was Chu Feng. 2 years ago, Chu Feng was only a gray cloak world spiritist. To them at that time, Chu Feng was already extremely powerful. But the current Chu Feng, with a short time of 2 years, actually became a blue cloak world spiritist and was many times more powerful than 2 years ago. They could really not help but sigh in admiration. Asterisk boom tilde 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 asterisk. But just at that time, a shocking huge explosion rang out, and at the same time, the entire void school intensely trembled. The violent charge caused many elders and disciples to be unable to stand stably, and even many of the structures that were fortified with spirit formation were unable to bear that charge. Cracks started to appear and some even split and collapsed. The flames had fallen. They collided into the void mountain range, and the extremely terrifying energy ripple was spreading circularly. The places that the ripple passed, no matter if they were trees or buildings, living things or dead things, were all instantly shattered and became dust. Quick, concentrate fully on the formation or else this void school will be heavily damaged. Seeing the destructive, horrifying ripple that was engulfing everything and coming over, Jiang Hengyuan loudly howled. At that instant, Chu Feng and the others naturally did not dare to waste any time and strengthened the formation with their full strengths. Finally, the brutally overwhelming might that the ripple brought along with countless fragments came surging over and fiercely collided into the spirit formation that the crowd combined powers to lay. It had to be said that the ripple was really very powerful. Despite Chu Feng and the others' joined hands, they still felt a huge pressure, and that also indirectly showed the strength of the fallen object. The flames were too strong, so that was why such a horrifying ripple was made. That was why when the ripples dispersed and the mountain range gradually settled, Chu Feng and the others who were standing in the air tightly knitted their brows. Shock and fear filled the gazes. They looked towards the direction of the fallen flames with. It was because in between several huge mountains, at that moment, it was no longer green. Rather, they became a continuous ocean of fire. Moreover, within the ocean of fire, extremely wild power seeped through, and even the sky twisted by the heat. What exactly is that? At that instant, Zhang Tianyi also flew over and said with a face filled with shock, "With such might, if it is not the descent of an extraordinary expert, then it is the descent of an extraordinary treasure. Everyone, are you willing to investigate to the end with me?" Jiang Hengyuan swept his gaze towards the crowd. "Lord Jiang, the might of this ocean of fire is very strong. Before knowing what object it is, it doesn't seem to be too appropriate to go over like this, right?" Vice Head Gao was a bit worried. "I am willing to go over." But just at that time, Chu Feng nodded and gave his agreement. "I also want to go over." Zhang Tianyi was the same. Like Chu Feng, not only was he not afraid, instead, he seemed a bit excited. "No matter what, if it is harmful to us, we will not be able to escape this calamity regardless. If it doesn't wish to harm us, even if we go over on our own accord, we may not anger it. Besides, if it is truly a treasure, if we don't take the chance and go and take it now and miss it, that would be quite a shame." Qi Fengyang also spoke. At the same time, all the experts on scene expressed their position one after the other. They wanted to go into the ocean of fire and investigate it. After all, opportunities coexisted with dangers. The ocean of fires descended from the sky, and it had enormous might. No one wanted to miss that chance. After reaching an agreement, they didn't dally, and with Jiang Hengyuan as the leader, they became blurs of light and flew over, dashing towards the ocean of fire. But they could do nothing as the flames were really too strange. The space above the ocean of fire was actually blocked by an alien energy. It wasn't a spirit formation, but it was impossible to pass through. If the crowd wanted to go to that place, they could only travel through the flames. However, luckily, the strength of the people on scene were all not weak. Although the flames were powerful with their current bodies, they could still barely resist it. But as they went deeper in, the flames became fiercer. At the end, Qi Fengyang and the others in the first level of the heaven realm were actually unable to fight against it. They had no choice but to leave, so they backed away from the ocean of fire. Finally, the ones who could still continue forward within the ocean of fire were only Chu Feng, Zi Ling, Jiang Hengyuan, Zhang Tianyi, and the vice head of the World Spirit Guild. But within the ocean of fire, even if it was Zi Ling and Zhang Tianyi, they had to respectively release the purple-colored aura and blue-colored flames to fight against the power of the flames. As for Vice Head Gao, he used powerful spirit formation techniques to fight against it, but he still felt the huge pressure. At that very instant, the only one who was able to not use special methods and hold on with only his physical body was Jiang Hengyuan, the expert in the 7th level of the heaven realm. Damn it, these flames are actually this horrifying. What exactly is in the heart of these flames? At that instant, two lightning surged within Chu Feng's eyes. His cultivation had already been risen to the 1st level of the heaven realm, but it was useless as even with that, he had trouble enduring. The flames were really too powerful. If he didn't have the black tortoise armor technique protecting his body, it was likely he had no way of even bearing them. Damn it. Is it possible I must stop here? Chu Feng was very bitter because in the core of the ocean of fire, there were very possibly some opportunities. He didn't want to miss them. Asterisk him asterisk as Chu Feng was worried, a layer of purple-colored aura suddenly came encircling. It orbited the horrifying flames that surrounded Chu Feng. It was Ling. She saw Chu Feng had trouble holding on, so she made a move without asking and helped Chu Feng hold off the flames. And when the purple-colored aura surrounded Chu Feng, the temperature of the scorching heat did indeed lower quite a bit. But looking at Ling, her face was pale and her face was filled with sweat. Ling, stop. In this place you must protect yourself. You cannot split up your power to help me resist the flames. Seeing that, Chu Feng hurried spoke to stop her. Lady Ling, Chu Feng is correct. This ocean of fire is very deep and the remaining road is still long. If you want to continue forward, it's best to save your own power. If Chu Feng cannot hold on, he can only back out. After all, forcefully going onwards in a place like this is very dangerous. Jiang Hengyuan also spoke. Actually, with this strength, there would be no problem for him to split his power to help Chu Feng and the others fight against the flames. But the reason why he didn't do that was because he knew that the flames were very strange. The deeper they went, the most overwhelming they would be. Even he himself could not guarantee he could walk to the deepest part. So naturally, he would not waste his power to protect others. Chu Feng, you've been looked down on, quickly let me out. Watch me protect you to the deepest part. Eggy smilingly said. Chu Feng did not waste time and with a thought, he opened the world spirit gate. In the instant the gate opened, boundless black-colored gas violently rushed out of the gate and instantly enveloped Chu Feng. Not only did the black-colored gas envelop Chu Feng, it even cut off the purple-colored aura Ling covered Chu Feng with. The most important part was that after the black-colored gas appeared, Chu Feng was actually unable to feel, in the slightest, the scorching hot temperature of the flames. Excuse me, but as long as I am here, I guarantee that Chu Feng won't lose to any of you. Just at that time, Eggy, who wore a black-colored feathered skirt, naughtily walked out. She first shot Jiang Hengyuan a glance, then skipped and jumped deeper into the flames. In the places she passed, the flames actually backed away on their own, as if they feared her. Asura world spirit. After seeing Eggy, Jiang Hengyuan's eyes flashed and he felt greatly shocked. Only then did he meaningfully look towards Chu Feng and say, Chu Feng, you are indeed impressive. You've actually made a contract with an Asura world spirit. Senior, you overpraise me. Chu Feng calmly smiled but also didn't waste time speaking and continued forward. Indeed, the flames were really too strange. The deeper they went, the fiercer they got. At the later stages, they were actually like wild beasts as they endlessly went into vicious states to attack people, and even made strange howls. In a situation like that, Vice Head Gao was the first to be unable to continue and was forced back. Quickly after, Ling was also unable to bear it. Before walking too much farther, even Zhang Tianyi couldn't do it. On the other hand, Chu Feng, who had Eggy's protection, was like a person unrelated to everything that was happening, and was even more relaxed than Jiang Hengyuan. That forced Jiang Hengyuan to look at Chu Feng in another light, because he discovered that Eggy was very powerful. Although the world spirit only had the cultivation of the second level of the heaven realm, faintly, even he felt some feelings of danger from Eggy. As for why he looked at Chu Feng in another light, it was not only because of Eggy. It was because Eggy was Chu Feng's world spirit. In simpler terms, no matter how much stronger Eggy was, she had to listen to Chu Feng. So it meant that Chu Feng was the one who was truly powerful. Asterisk cough 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 asterisk when Chu Feng and Jiang Hengyuan walked to the deepest part of the ocean of fire. Jiang Hengyuan actually spat out a mouthful of blood, then started to painfully cough. Senior, are you okay? Turning his head back to look, Chu Feng couldn't help but be shocked. He astonishedly discovered that at present, Jiang Hengyuan's face was extremely strange. His entire body was scalding, and even his aura became unstable. Chu Feng, I can't go on. These flames are too strange, they actually entered my body without me knowing. I cannot continue forward, or else even if I don't get burned by these flames, I will explode from the inside and die. Right now, the one who is able to continue searching and continue in this ocean of fire is only you. But do not force yourself. If you have trouble resisting against the flames, you must immediately return. Jiang Hengyuan patted Chu Feng's shoulder. Then after he meaningfully looked at the nearby Eggy, without turning his head again, he went back on the path he came from. TCH, his cultivation is fine, but regretfully his physique is too poor. Looking at Jiang Hengyuan's back, Eggy disdainfully curled her lips, then continued forward. Looking at Eggy, who was both naughty and tsundere, Chu Feng could only helplessly shake his head. Eggy was very powerful, so powerful that even Chu Feng could not estimate how powerful she was, although she only had the cultivation of the second level of the heaven realm currently. It was likely that even Jiang Hengyuan in the 7th level of the heaven realm could not be compared to her battle power. Eggy was that terrifying. At first, after Eggy borrowed Chu Feng's body in the White Tiger mountain range to crush Zi-Ling, Chu Feng already knew. After that, Eggy led the way and Chu Feng quickly followed. Finally, they arrived at the deepest part of the ocean of fire. At that instant, the flames all around them rose into the sky and endlessly rolled and howled. Not only would they materialize to attack Chu Feng and Eggy, they even cut off Chu Feng's spirit power, preventing him from determining the directions. At that instant, Chu Feng panicked. Surrounding him was an area filled with flames. Without spirit power, he was equal to a blind person. If he messed up, he would possibly even be stuck there. Asterisk ta 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 ta. Asterisk, but just at that time, Chu Feng's ears jumped. Quickly after, he abruptly cast his fierce gaze towards one side of the ocean of fire, because he had actually heard footsteps within the howling. Asterisk Wueyao asterisk indeed. Shortly after Chu Feng heard those footsteps, and after the flames furiously howled, both walls of flames avoided the origin of the noises and formed a road. And at the end of the road, a figure wearing a black-colored robe was gradually approaching. It was an old man. The long black hair on his head reached his waist and fluttered without wind. He was extremely overbearing. The most special thing was his pair of aged eyes. Although the corners of his eyes were dried wrinkles, his eyes' expression was extremely terrifying, just like a death god's. He only looked at Chu Feng once, but Chu Feng couldn't help taking a few steps back. The usually calm Chu Feng at present, his heart was actually beating quicker, feeling an unprecedented feeling of danger. It was killing intent, extremely powerful killing intent. That killing intent was not innate, but killing intent that only people who truly killed countless living had. If it was said that a person's killing intent strength could be measured by the number of people killed, then the number of people the old man killed would definitely have passed several tens of millions. Interesting. I didn't expect that someone would have a world spirit from the Asura spirit world in a desolate place like this. And it's even a brat with only the cultivation of the 8th level of the profound realm. The black-robed old man swept his gaze over Eggy and Chu Feng, and unconcernedly said. At that instant, Chu Feng couldn't help but be shocked. He clearly used the power of the two lightning, and raised his cultivation to the 1st level of the heaven realm. But that old man actually saw through his fake cultivation, and knew that his real cultivation was the 8th level of the profound realm. In addition, Chu Feng felt a threatening feeling that he had never felt before from the old man, as well as an unfathomably deep cultivation. He determined that the old man was an extraordinary expert, possibly even an expert in the martial lord realm. Let me see what's so special about a brat like you. Suddenly, the old man's gaze changed, and he actually headed towards Chu Feng. Old bastard, move, or else don't blame me for not holding myself back. Seeing that, Eggy's face changed as she explosively yelled. Simultaneously, vast black-colored gas burst out from her body. When the black-colored gas appeared, cries similar to those of wolves and ghosts immediately sounded. It was extremely terrifying. But even with such horrifying black-colored gas, the black-clothed old man's face didn't change. Rather, he indifferently smiled and said, "Not bad. This level of battle power belongs to the noble bloodline of Asura world spirits. It is really quite rare." And as he spoke, a layer of golden radiance suddenly spread out from his body. Not only did it stop Eggy's black-colored flames, it actually also rapidly pressed it back. Afterwards, the golden radiance became a huge net, and in only an instant, it forced the black-colored gas back into Eggy's body. Gold-colored spirit formation power. You're a gold cloak world spiritist. Chu Feng was endlessly shocked because he already recognized the golden radiance. It was gold-colored spirit formation power that only gold cloak world spiritists could use. A purple cloak world spiritist could already be called a legend in the continent of the 9 provinces. A gold cloak world spiritist would be a legend within legends. That person was actually a gold cloak world spiritist, which meant that most likely he wasn't a person from the continent of the 9 provinces and was indeed an extraordinary expert. Not bad, you have some observation skills. Suddenly, the old man's voice rang out behind Chu Feng's ears. In that instant, Chu Feng also astonishedly discovered that the black-clothed old man who was originally nearby disappeared. But when Chu Feng turned around, he saw a big hand already approaching him and had pressed onto his chest. The old man's speed was really too quick. When Chu Feng saw his hand, his palm had already tightly grabbed onto his own chest. At the same time, layers of strange power also entered his body and started to scurry everywhere inside Chu Feng's body, seemingly trying to search for something. He was actually searching Chu Feng's body, looking for what was special about Chu Feng. However, when the strange power prepared to enter Chu Feng's dantian, the black-clothed old man's face suddenly changed greatly. Quickly after, he hurriedly let go of the hand which was grabbing Chu Feng. At that instant, the gaze he looked at Chu Feng with became very complicated. He mumbled to himself, "Unexpected, unexpected. In such a desolate place, such an unsimple brat actually appeared. Whatever. It is really rare for a brat like you to appear in a place like this. Today, I shall spare your life." As he spoke, the black-clothed old man suddenly waved his big sleeve. Then the surrounding flames started to rapidly extinguish. With only a blink, the vast ocean of fire that took over several mountains completely disappeared. It became rolling dense smoke, and at the same time, the black-clothed old man also disappeared. So these are the methods of a gold cloak world spiritist. Chu Feng looked at the ground, which was pitch black, and gave off bursts of heat. He felt endless shock in his heart. Chu Feng quickly looked at this. But just at that time, Eggy cried out in surprise. Turning his head to look, Chu Feng astonishedly discovered that an enormous huge thing appeared in the distance. It was a huge bird. That bird was extremely huge, so huge that its body was as big as a small hill. Its entire body's feathers were golden. They were glittering and shining, and were very blinding. However, although the bird had a very beautiful appearance, many places on its body were dangerous weapons. Within its huge mouth, there were pointed teeth. Even every single feather was an indestructible sharp blade. But sadly, at that very instant, the terrifying huge bird did not have the aura of life. But on its enormous body, frightening flames still lingered around, scuttering everywhere. The flames were the same flames from the ocean of fire before, which meant that the flames weren't made by the black-clothed old man, but by the terrifying huge bird. Haha, impressive. This is a monstrous beast that truly has special blood. It is a truly powerful monstrous beast, fated to become a king of monstrous beasts when it was born. When something like the 5 big monster kings of the 1,000 Monster Mountain, or even your big brother, that little monkey butt, is compared to this monstrous beast, they are so insanely weak. At that instant, Eggy was unendingly excited. She madly ran towards the huge bird with skips and jumps. Seeing that, Chu Feng also hurriedly went over, deeply afraid of the appearance of any change, and that Eggy would meet danger. But after Chu Feng neared the terrifying huge bird, Even more so, he felt that he was endlessly minuscule. In front of it, Chu Feng was truly as minuscule as an ant. He felt like a monstrous beast wasn't in front of him but a small hill. Damn it, damn it. Its source energy has been absorbed. It was even absorbed so cleanly. Or else, with this monstrous beast source energy, it would have definitely made my cultivation rise greatly, and I would have been able to continuously make breakthroughs for many levels. Damn it, damn it. Suddenly, Eggy started to yell as she was filled with resentment. At that moment, Chu Feng also discovered that the terrifying huge bird source energy was indeed cleanly consumed, and not even a trace remained. Without much thinking, Chu Feng knew who did that. It was definitely the black-clothed old man just now. He was a gold cloak world spiritist, so he undoubtedly made many contracts with many powerful world spirits. It was probable that the huge bird was killed by him, and the reason he killed the huge bird was very simple as well: to absorb its source energy. Heavens! In this world there is actually such a huge bird. Just at that time when Zhang Tianyi, Jiang Hengyuan, Qi Fengyang, Gao Qi Jrr, Zi Ling, and the others saw the ocean of fire extinguished, all of them returned and came up to the huge bird. Their faces were filled with shock as they observed in detail, because no matter who it was in their group, it was the first time they saw such an enormous, monstrous beast. Chu Feng, what has happened here? Was the ocean of fire extinguished by you? Jiang Hengyuan came to Chu Feng's side and asked with a face filled with amazement. Chu Feng thought for a while, but at the end, he didn't plan to tell him the truth. He feigned being at a loss as he shook his head and said, "It wasn't me. It extinguished itself. Perhaps because this huge bird was living before, so the flames lived along with it. And since it has died now, the ocean of fire has also been extinguished. That should be right." After hearing Chu Feng's reply, Jiang Hengyuan cast his gaze back at the terrifying huge bird. He discovered that the flames on the huge bird's body was also currently returning back to its body. So to Chu Feng's words, he deeply believed them and did not doubt. He did not have the slightest trace of suspicion. Afterwards, Jiang Hengyuan and the others started to check the huge bird in detail, seeing whether there were treasures on its body or not. But at the end, they didn't find any treasure on the huge bird. However, even so, Jiang Hengyuan still personally laid a vast concealment spirit formation to hide the huge bird. Moreover, Jiang Hengyuan prepared to sleep next to the huge bird to act as guard there. Although the huge bird didn't bring any treasures, it itself was a treasure. Its feathers, teeth, and bones could be made into weapons, extremely powerful weapons. Through a world spiritist's processing, they could all be made into treasure-level weapons that were only second to elite armaments. Even its meat and organs after eating could help the health of one's mind and body. They could also be concocted into medicine and even made into cultivation resources. However, that huge bird was very strong. Even though it was already dead at present and its power had dissipated, its physical body was still very strong. Breaking it up was still a huge project, so even if it was Jiang Hengyuan, he immediately sent news back to the Jiang dynasty and asked dynasty experts to come there. In less than a few days, the monstrous Monkey King and the Jiang dynasty experts, who stayed in the Azure Dragon School, came. So it turned out that the flames shocked almost the entire Azure province. The experts came there because they were chasing after the flames. But other than the monstrous Monkey King and the others, another expert also came. It was Zi Xianxia. Zi Ling's grandfather actually came as well. This is an inferno divine bird. It is a monstrous beast species that has special blood in the Eastern Sea region, a powerful existence that has its own land in the Eastern Sea region. But this inferno divine bird can be said to be an existence of the bird king level. An inferno divine bird would not die for no reason. Zi Xianxia came from the Eastern Sea region, so he immediately recognized the origin of the terrifying huge bird. In addition, within Zi Xianxia's eyes, one could see deep fear, even terror. There are indeed a few injuries on the body of this inferno divine bird, and when it was living, it should have fought against a person. However, these are not fatal injuries. I believe that its fatal injury should have come from inside its body. Just at that time, Jiang Hengyuan spoke. He had already carefully examined the terrifying huge bird. Senior Zai, from what you see, when this inferno divine bird lived, what realm should its cultivation be in? Had it stepped into the level of martial lords? Afterwards, Jiang Hengyuan looked at Zi Xiaoyuan again. Not only was Zi Xiaoyuan older than him, his cultivation was also stronger than his. The only person who could equally fight against Zi Xiaoyuan was likely only the monstrous Monkey King. So Jiang Hengyuan had to be respectful towards Zi Xiaoyuan. Martial Lord, you are underestimating this Inferno Divine Bird too much. The Inferno Divine Bird is a monstrous beast that has a pure bloodline. It comes from the ancient times and has already been thriving in this world for several tens of thousands of years. Monstrous beasts that are more like that will be more likely to not form a humanoid shape. They will keep their original monstrous beast shape to reproduce and survive. So, the strength of the Inferno Divine Bird can be determined based on their body size. According to this Inferno Divine Bird's body size, it should be of the Bird King level. The number of Inferno Divine Birds in the Bird King level, from the group of Inferno Divine Birds back then, does not exceed 3. So this Inferno Divine Bird was absolutely not only in the Martial Lord realm. It is in existence in the Martial King level. Zi Xiaoyuan said with a face full of solemnness. What? Martial King? Hearing those words, not a single person on scene wasn't greatly shocked. In the continent of the 9 provinces, not a single person could step into the Martial Lord realm. So how terrifying of an existence was a Martial King? And what kind of existence would the one who killed the Inferno Divine Bird be? But compared to other people's pure shock and wild guessing, Chu Feng lightly frowned. He felt uneasiness in his heart, because he couldn't help but think about the black-clothed old man. If it was said that the Inferno Divine Bird was a Martial King-level existence, and it was indeed killed by the black-clothed old man, it also meant that the black-clothed old man was at least an expert of the Martial King level. At present in the continent of the 9 provinces, a Martial King expert actually came. Yet incidentally right now, it was the time when the Jiang dynasty prepared to open the Emperor Tomb. If the news of the Emperor Tomb was known, it was likely that the black-clothed old man would poke his foot in. After all, with the enticement of an Emperor Tomb, even if it was a gold cloak world spiritist, he would definitely feel very interested. And if the black-clothed old man truly interfered, Chu Feng would truly not know whether it was fortune or a disaster, because the killing intent of the black-clothed old man was too dense. Chu Feng did not dare to be sure whether he would kill the people from the Jiang dynasty for the treasures. So Chu Feng was hesitating whether he should tell that to the Jiang dynasty. However, the old man's strength was too powerful. Chu Feng didn't even truly know whether the old man left or not. If the black-clothed old man didn't leave and Chu Feng told the others about him, he didn't dare to guarantee that the old man wouldn't be angered. At that time, it was possible that his tiny life couldn't be kept. It wouldn't matter if he died, but if the old man was going to completely kill everyone, and also kill Zi Ling as well as his family, that would be a huge problem. At the end, Chu Feng did not speak. He decided to make a wager and hoped that the black-clothed old man left immediately. After all, in a place like this, there was no meaning in staying behind for such a powerful person like himself. Chu Feng, follow me over. I have something I want to tell you alone. Suddenly, Zi Xiaoyuan patted Chu Feng's shoulder. Grandfather, what's the matter? Can I listen in as well? Seeing that, Zi Ling hurriedly came over with smiles. You little girl, would I still harm Chu Feng? Seeing his own granddaughter protect Chu Feng in such a way, Zi Xiaoyuan felt very helpless. Zi Ling, don't worry. I'll quickly return after leaving with Senior Xiaoyuan. Chu Feng said as he smiled. Then okay. Seeing Chu Feng speak, only then did Zi Ling obediently nod her head. Ah, I've raised you for so many years. Yet that is inferior to 1 year with Chu Feng. You little girl. Seeing his stubborn granddaughter being actually so obedient in front of Chu Feng, Xianxia felt quite helpless, but there was still a smile of relief on his face. Quickly after, Xianxia rose into the air, and Chu Feng also closely followed. Only after the two of them flew out of the void mountain range and entered a large area of white clouds did Xianxia wave his big sleeve and laid a purple-colored soundproofing spirit formation. At that instant, Chu Feng was shocked in his heart. He never would have thought that Xianxia was also a world spiritist, and he was even a purple cloak world spiritist. But thinking a bit more in detail, he calmed back down. After all, that old man was already unfathomable from the start. If there were even gold cloak world spiritists in the Eastern Sea region, it would be much more acceptable for there to be purple cloak world spiritists. Chu Feng, today I will tell you a secret that even Ling doesn't know. Finally, Xianxia spoke. Senior, what secret? Chu Feng curiously asked and made an appearance of attentive listening. I wonder if Ling talked to you about her ancestry and why I brought her to this place. Xianxia smilingly asked. Senior, I already know everything. I will work hard to cultivate. I will become even stronger, and sooner or later I will kill Ling's enemy for her. That's right. Senior, who's the person that killed Ling's parents as well as all her and your relatives? Can you tell me? Chu Feng impatiently asked. Sigh. Seeing how Chu Feng was behaving, Xianxia felt very relieved, but he helplessly sighed, then said, Actually, Ling's parents have not died yet, and our Zai family still exists. What? Ling's parents haven't died yet? Hearing those words, Chu Feng's pupils abruptly shrunk, and he couldn't help being a bit shocked. I tricked Ling and made up a lie so big it could fill up the sky. Xianxia said. Senior, what exactly happened? Chu Feng asked closely. This matter is a long story. It's better that I tell you from the start. In the Eastern Sea region, although my Zai family isn't some huge power, it can still be counted as a slightly famous family. In addition, we had always been low profile and lived in harmony with nearby powers. Our lives were lived quite peacefully, and in the Eastern Sea region, our family has been passed down for several hundred years. However, everything changed because of Ling's birth. Ling is a divine body, so when she was born, an abnormal scene appeared. It shocked the land that was the Eastern Sea region. Logically speaking, it was a good thing. After all, divine bodies are geniuses with the blessing of the heavens. When born, they're fated to have outstanding achievements in the future. The surrounding powers all came over to congratulate. Even the ones who had conflicts with my Zai family wanted to dissolve the grudges and gain some relations. Even the enormous force of the Eastern Sea region, the immortal execution archipelago, came to my Zai family and wanted to set up a marriage between Ling and the young master of the archipelago. To my Zai family, that was a heavenly huge joyous event. It even surpassed Ling's birth and her identity of a divine body. It's because the immortal execution archipelago is truly too strong. So strong that in the Eastern Sea region, there aren't many powers that can directly fight against it. For Ling to be able to marry the young master of the immortal execution archipelago meant that in the future, she would become the young lady of the immortal execution archipelago. They even made a promise, stating on the great marriage day between Ling and the young master of the immortal execution archipelago, my Zai family could all enter the immortal execution archipelago and became a member of it. Moreover, in order for Ling to have even better growth, an elder of the immortal execution archipelago fed Ling a special pellet. Quickly after, he set a date, stating that on the year Ling became 20 years old, they would come to escort Ling for the marriage. Speaking to that point, the helplessness on Xianxuan's face instantly became a bit stronger. What came after? Chu Feng closely asked. He felt that something must have occurred or else the scene today wouldn't be happening. The things were not as simple as imagined. because at that moment I was there, and as a world spiritist, I have always liked to study ancient texts to learn things many people don't know about. I noticed that the Immortal Execution Archipelago didn't feed Zi Ling a good pellet that stabilized her strength and bettered her development. What they fed her was an already extinct poison. Zi Xiaoyuan spoke. Poison. Chu Feng felt greatly shocked. That's right. It was an extremely poisonous poison. Poison that only belonged to the ancient times, and were specifically given to divine bodies, as well as people with special bloodlines. So that poison had a name, the heaven-gripping pellet, poison specifically used for strangling geniuses. After taking the poison, it would more or less restrict the special power of the consumer. In reality, it was accumulating the consumer's special power, and when they reached 20 years old, the accumulation of the special power would reach the highest state. At the time that person is 20 years old, as long as they do the thing between a man and a woman, all of their power would be taken by the other person. After that, the one who consumed the poison would become ordinary, because they would lose their power completely. From then on, they would lose their special power and even have no cultivation at all. In contrast, before 20 years old, the consumer could not do the thing between a man and woman, or else the other person would die, and the consumer would also die because of power loss. Zi Xiaoyuan said, "What poisonous methods! That immortal execution archipelago truly ought to die." At that instant, Chu Feng finally understood why Zi Ling wasn't willing to do the thing between a man and woman, no matter what. Even when Chu Feng kissed Zi Ling, sometimes she would be very afraid. So she had taken such a poisonous thing. As long as he recalled that the person he loved was actually forced to take such a poison shortly after birth, to become a tool for raising cultivation, Chu Feng truly felt his fury burn in his heart and was endlessly angry. At first, I wasn't definitely sure that the pellet was the heaven-gripping pellet, but when the Immortal Execution Island set the marriage date to be when Zi Ling was 20 full years old, and instructed them to keep an eye on Zi Ling, and told them it was better for Zi Ling to keep a distance from the opposite gender, I pretty much confirmed that it was doubtlessly the heaven-gripping pellet. So, I told this to Zi Ling's parents, as well as to the master of the Zai family, and also some people who managed the home. But it was useless, as they simply didn't believe the words I said. They unendingly trusted the Immortal Execution Archipelago, the righteous, renowned family who removed demons and protected virtues. For Zi Ling's safety, I had no choice but to secretly take Zi Ling away, and even kill an old man and a baby to feign the appearance of an accident happening to Zi Ling and me. Afterwards, I escaped and came to this desolate place, changed names, and also made up a heavenly huge lie to Zi Ling. I wanted to agitate her will to fight so she could become powerful earlier and return to the Eastern Sea region, in order to go to the Immortal Execution Archipelago for demanding the antidote. Zi Xiaoyuan said, "Senior, then why have you told this matter to me? Has some change happened?" Chu Feng, who knew the truth, felt uneasy. He felt that Zi Xiaoyuan would not tell him all this for no reason at all. Honestly speaking, the ruse I set up back then has been seen through. Moreover, for so many years, the Zai family have kept on searching for Zi Ling and me. Right now, the master of my Zai family and Zi Ling's parents have already came to the continent of the 9 provinces. Also, they have found me. Zi Xiaoyuan said, "What? Zi Ling's parents have come. What are they planning to do? Is it possible they want to bring Zi Ling back to go marry the master of the Immortal Execution Archipelago?" Chu Feng's face changed greatly because it was something he could absolutely not bear. "Sigh, it's my fault. I overestimated myself and underestimated the Immortal Execution Archipelago. After Zi Ling and I left, not only did the people from the Immortal Execution Archipelago not make things difficult for the Zai family, they even maintained the marriage agreement and kept on providing cultivation resources and mysterious techniques and martial skills to assist the Zai family. This caused the Zai family, who originally believed the immortal execution archipelago already, to deeply trust them even more and to not doubt them at all. They felt deeply grateful for their kindness and made a resolution to find Zi Ling and me in order to complete the marriage agreement to repay the favors and kindness from the immortal execution archipelago. Right now, they have already found me, and they have also come to the Azure province. Zi Ling and I will follow them back to the Eastern Sea region, or else not only will they kill you, they will kill everyone in the continent of the 9 provinces. They will do that for no other reason, but because the continent of the 9 provinces contained Zi Ling and me for 16 full years. Senior, when have you prepared to take Zi Ling away? After knowing everything and after a while of silence, Chu Feng spoke again to ask, I will bring Zi Ling away today. Zi Xiaoyuan replied, then how will you tell Zi Ling about this? Chu Feng asked, actually, since everything has reached this state, I can only speak the truth. However, I'm only afraid that Zi Ling's behavior will be too intense and that she will refuse to return with them, wanting to stay with you, regardless of life or death. At that time, her actions would harm you and everyone in the continent of the 9 provinces. So, Chu Feng, it would be the best if you went and hide right now. It would be the best if you left right now, and the farther you leave, the better. Zi Xiaoyuan said. Ho, but after hearing Zi Xiaoyuan's words, Chu Feng suddenly smiled. Then quickly after, he said, Senior, I won't stop Zi Ling if she has to leave, but even more so, I won't cowardly hide. Let us return. Ah, child, you are indeed as stubborn as Zi Ling. Facing Chu Feng's response, Zi Xiaoyuan wasn't too surprised. Rather, it was as if he already expected that. So, he didn't force anything onto Chu Feng. He dissolved the purple-colored spirit formation and returned to the Void Mountain range. However, when they came back to where the Inferno Divine Bird was, Zi Ling wasn't there. In addition to that, everyone on scene were looking left and right with expressions of panic. Chu Feng, this is bad. Zi Ling has been taken away by someone. Seeing Chu Feng, Zhang Tianyi hurriedly rose into the air and said with a face filled with nervousness. Who was it? Chu Feng asked. It was an old man as well as a man and a woman. They called themselves Zi Ling's parents, but Zi Ling didn't even recognize them. However, they were too strong. We had no way of fighting back, and we could only watch as they took Zi Ling away. Zhang Tianyi explained. Then do you know where they went? Chu Feng's brows were tightly locked. He already knew who took away Zi Ling. I don't know. They didn't say anything before leaving. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. Zi Yuanshan, bring that Chu Feng to the Void School. We will wait for you two on the top of the Void Tower. But just at that time, an extremely loud voice of an old man suddenly came from the direction of the Void School. It's them. Is it possible that they haven't left yet? Hearing that voice, Zhang Tianyi and the others couldn't help being greatly shocked, and more or less, expressions of fear emerged onto their faces. Senior, at that moment, Chu Feng cast his gaze towards Zi Xiaoyuan, who was by his side. That's right, it's them. Zi Yuanshan is my real name. Chu Feng, follow me over. It seems like from the start, they had never planned to let me bring Zi Ling to see them myself. Zi Xiaoyuan said. Chu Feng, what is happening? Seeing that, Zhang Tianyi hurried asked. This matter is a long story. I'll tell all of you later. Right now, it would be the best for all of you to return to the Azure Dragon School. Wait until I finish handling the things here. Then I'll go find you. Chu Feng was worried that the people on scene would get affected, so he urged them to leave. The people there were all intelligent people, so they all understood the meaning behind Chu Feng's words. They also felt that the 3 who came had unkind intentions, so no one asked any more. However, the uneasiness on their faces became a bit stronger. Little boy, those 3 people are unsimple. They should all be martial lord experts. They are not people from the continent of the 9 provinces, so do not be rash. At that instant, the monstrous Monkey King also spoke. On the monstrous monkey's face that had never feared the heavens or the earth, a hint of fear had actually also appeared. Looking back at Jiang Hengyuan and the others, they were the same. It could be seen that they were indeed terrified. Martial Lord experts were indeed not existences they could fight against. Everyone, don't worry. If it's fortune, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it's unavoidable one. Similar to, if it's a problem you can solve, you don't need to worry as you can solve it. If it's a problem you cannot solve, you also don't need to worry as there is nothing you can do. Chu Feng relievedly smiled, then looked at Xianxia and said, "Senior, let's go over." Xianxia nodded his head, then grabbed Chu Feng's shoulder and rose into the sky, with a gust of wind blowing past. They instantly passed over countless mountain heads and came above the Void School. At that instant, Chu Feng stood in the high sky and was able to see that on the top of the Void Tower, there was a tea table. Ling sat next to the tea table, and beside her, there was even a man and a woman, as well as an old man. The man and woman had very handsome and beautiful appearances. Looking carefully, they truly did look a bit similar to Ling. At that instant, they were dotingly looking at Ling, chatting about something with her. As for the old man, he was also full of smiles. Although he didn't say anything, he was smilingly looking at Ling and unendingly examining her. He even endlessly nodded his head. But compared to them, Ling's current face was quite unsightly. She was sweeping her gaze along the horizon, seemingly trying to search for something. When she saw Chu Feng and Xianxia, she hurriedly stood up and flew over. She went up to Chu Feng and Xianxia, then asked him, "Grandfather, was what they said all true? They are my parents. My Zai family is still living well and you tricked me." This. Xianxia didn't know how to reply and his face was filled with shame. But as things were, he had no way of concealing it. At the end, he could only silently nod his head. "But grandfather, why did you need to trick me? Why did you need to take me away from my parents' side? Why did you need to take me away from my family, and even lied, saying that they were all killed and wanted me to avenge them?" Ling kept on asking with a face filled with confusion. More or less in her eyes there was some blame. "Ling, you must believe Senior Zai. He has hidden troubles. Everything he has done is for the sake of you," Chu Feng explained. After hearing Chu Feng's words, only then did Ling instantly calm down quite a bit. "Yuanshan, bring Yuer and Chu Feng down. If you have things to say, sit down first." Just at that time, the so-called master of the Zai family spoke. Yuer. Hearing that name, Chu Feng was first taken aback, but he reacted very quickly. It should be Ling's previous name. "Chu Feng, Ling, let's go over there to speak." Xianxia went over first and landed on top of the tower. Quickly after, Chu Feng and Ling descended together. With the invitation of Ling's parents, they sat in front of the tea table on two empty chairs. At first, Ling's parents first detailedly examined Chu Feng. The mother's gaze was rather soft, and there was perhaps even some admiration, but the father's gaze was filled with enmity. It could be seen that he really did not like Chu Feng. As for the Zai family master who had unfathomably deep cultivation, although he also smilingly examined Chu Feng, he could feel that he very casually looked at himself. In addition to that, although he had a smile on his face, his gaze was not kind. It could be said that he had extremely deep thoughts. After that, with the five of them on one table, they chatted for a long time. They told Ling about the things that happened back then in detail, and also mentioned the arranged marriage set between Ling and the immortal execution archipelago, as well as their goal by coming here to find Ling, to bring her back. After knowing everything, Ling shut her eyes and stayed in silence for a long time. Only then did she gradually stand back up. She first looked at Chu Feng with a light smile, then looked at Xianxia, and only at the end did she cast her gaze towards her own parents and the family master and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, but I think I have already gotten used to my current life. Besides, I already have a person I love, so I will not follow you back." "Yuer, what did you say?" "The immortal execution archipelago has cared so much for our Zai family. If you don't go back with us, how can we face our family?" After hearing Ling's words, the face of Ling's father changed greatly. He abruptly stood up and actually pointed at Ling and furiously reprimanded. "Who's Yuer? I am not called Yuer. I am called Ling. Also, I don't even know who the immortal execution archipelago is. It is you who set the arranged marriage with them, not me, so it is unrelated to me." Ling also stood up. She faced her own father and fiercely refuted. "You?" Seeing Ling speak to him like that, his face greened from fury, but at the end his expression changed, his gaze turned, and he actually wanted to aim the spearhead towards Chu Feng instead. It was because he knew that the person Ling could not let go the most was Chu Feng. The person who was holding Ling back was Chu Feng. It was all because of Chu Feng. "Xiang, what are you doing? Don't scare Yuer." Seeing that, Ling's mother hurriedly pulled the corners of Ling's father's clothes and forcefully pulled him back down onto the chair. But Ling's father still pointed his finger towards Chu Feng and said, "No matter where, is a brat like him worth it for you to do so much? A random breath from the young archipelago master can shatter his body from the wind. Shut up. I don't need you to tell me whether he is good or not. In my, Ling's eyes, he's the best, the most perfect person. I will not marry any person other than him." Ling was also enraged and also furiously howled at her own father. "Yuanshan, look at what you have done. The reason why Yuer has become what she is today is all because of you." But just at that time, the master of the Zai family's face also turned cold. He pointed at Yuan and reprimanded. Facing the Zai family master's reprimand, Yuan lowered his head and said nothing. If it was before, perhaps he could oppose the family master. But in these years, with the assistance of the immortal execution archipelago, the Zai family's cultivation increased greatly. At present, even Ling's parents stepped into the martial lord realm, let alone the family master. "Shut up. What are you? Do you think you are worthy to reprimand my grandfather?" However, Ling was unable to endure her own grandfather being reprimanded, so she pointed at the master of the Zai family and loudly roared. At that instant, the face of the Zai family master clearly became unsightly, but he did not show his anger. He forcibly endured the fury, and at the end, like a miracle, actually blossomed a kind smile on his aged face and said to Ling, "Yuer, one day, you will understand that we are the ones who care about you the most, think for you the most, and hope for your well-being the most." Afterwards, he cast his gaze towards Ling's parents and said, "Qiang Xin Yue, this is your family's problem, so you discuss it on your own. However, today, Ling must leave with us." After speaking those words, he flashed away and disappeared like a ghost. After the master of the Zai family left, Ling, as well as Ling's parents, went into silence. On the other hand, Yuan became uneasy because he knew the family master's methods. If Ling was not willing to leave no matter what, not only Chu Feng and he would be affected, everyone related to Ling would be. Moreover, ultimately, it was very difficult for Ling to escape her destiny of going with them, because when forced without any other choice, even if it was kidnapping, they would definitely kidnap Ling back. So his gaze turned, hiddenly sent a mental message and spoke some words to Ling. After Yuan spoke those words, Ling's pupils flashed. Quickly after, her originally tightened-up little face immediately relaxed. Her entire body was like a ball that had its air all released. She no longer had the energy she had before. Chu Feng noticed Ling's change, and was also aware that Yuan might have hiddenly sent a mental message to Ling about something. So he grabbed Ling's hand, smiled to her and said, "If you don't want to leave, stay behind. Don't have any worries." Facing such a warm Chu Feng, Ling forced out a hint of smile, then threw herself into Chu Feng's embrace, one hand tightly clamping over Chu Feng's neck. The other was placed on Chu Feng's chest. Seeing that scene, the expression of Ling's father changed, and he planned to say something. However, before he spoke, Ling's mother placed her hand on his hand, then shook her head. At the end, Ling's father suppressed the fury in his heart. He stood up, walked to the edge of the tower, and looked down towards the courtyard. unwilling to see the intimate scene between Chu Feng and Zi Ling. Like that, the two of them embraced each other for a long time. Only after a full 2 hours did Zi Ling unwillingly let her hand go. At that moment, her eyes were already reddened, but her face still brimmed with a sweet, light smile. She looked towards her own mother and said, "I am willing to go back with you." "Really? You are what you've said is true." Hearing those words, Zi Ling's father quickly turned around. His previous displeased face was filled with elation. As for Chu Feng, he stood where he was and did not say anything because, just now, Zi Ling used her hand to write many words on his chest. With words, Zi Ling expressed her love to Chu Feng, as well as her determination for loving Chu Feng. Her last words declared she would be waiting for Chu Feng in the Eastern Sea region, and after 4 years, go to the Zai family to marry her. If at that time, Chu Feng was still unable to appear, and the ones appearing were the people of the immortal execution archipelago instead, she would commit suicide. Even if she died, she was not going to marry any other person. To Zi Ling's words, other than being moved, Chu Feng felt his heart ache. However, he had no other choice right now, and it could only be like so. But he swore that 4 years later, he would definitely go to the Zai family to marry Zi Ling. Either he was going to completely shock everyone, or he was going to commit suicide for love, along with Zi Ling. However, he was absolutely not going to allow Zi Ling to die alone. "But I have several conditions." Zi Ling said. "What conditions?" "You are just say them. Your father I will meet your conditions. As long as you are willing to return with me, I agree to anything." Zi Ling's father unhesitantly responded. "First, I am called Zi Ling, so do not call me Yuer in the future because in this life, I am only called Zi Ling. Second, after returning to the Zai family, I do not want to see anyone making things difficult for my grandfather. Third, after leaving this place, I hope that no one in the continent of the 9 provinces will be harmed. In the future, I will still return to this place. If I know that people suffer unneeded harm because of me, I'll show you how I will suicide. Last, I want 10 million heaven beads. Right now, I'll leave whenever you can take them out." Zi Ling said very clearly. "What, 10 million heaven beads? Yuer? Nah, no, it's Linger. You are making things too difficult for me. I can agree to the first 3 conditions you said, but just this 4th one. It is really. The 4th condition is unneeded." Just at that time, Chu Feng spoke. He understood why Zi Ling wanted 10 million heaven beads. They were wanted for him. Zi Ling fought for the beads for him, but he did not need them. He did not need the help of Zi Ling's family, because he knew that Zi Ling's family looked down on him. They looked down on his cultivation, and even more so, looked down on his background. If Chu Feng's background was better than the so-called young master of the immortal execution archipelago, if his cultivation was higher than the young master of the immortal execution archipelago, there would absolutely not be a scene like today. Rather, it would be directly opposite. So, Chu Feng had already seen through Zi Ling's parents. He had seen through the Zai family. They were a group of stuck-ups. For their own interest, they were willing to sacrifice Zi Ling's happiness. Then might I ask, if Zi Ling's parents and Zi Ling's family truly loved Zi Ling and truly thought for her, why would they force Zi Ling like this? Force her to abandon the person she loved, to marry a person she did not like. Therefore, Chu Feng did not need their help. He would rely on his own power to grow, and one day he would force Zi Ling's parents and everyone in the Zai family to look at him in another light and make them regret today's decision, and let them know that their choice today was the wrong one. He, Chu Feng, was definitely suitable for Zi Ling. He was worth it for Zi Ling to love him so much. Moreover, other than him, there was no one else suitable for Zi Ling. Chu Feng, you. Seeing that Chu Feng was actually pushing it away, Zi Ling's little face instantly changed slightly, seeming to want to say something. Bang, but before she finished speaking, Chu Feng opened his arms and grabbed onto Zi Ling. He put the little beauty in his embrace, opened his thick lips, and stuck them onto Zi Ling's pink cherry-like lips, then started to madly suck. It wasn't the first time Chu Feng kissed Zi Ling, But it was the only time Zi Ling didn't refuse. Rather, Zi Ling even tightly held onto Chu Feng's neck and was very engrossed in kissing. She wished she could give her everything to Chu Feng. "You bastard!" Seeing that scene, Zi Ling's father was incomparably enraged. He raised his hand and wanted to attack Chu Feng. After all, back then, the elder of the immortal execution archipelago had once specially asked to prevent Zi Ling from any contract with the opposite gender. At present, Chu Feng's actions definitely broke the taboo. If the people from the immortal execution archipelago knew about it, they would definitely kill Chu Feng. Zi Qiang. However, Ziling's mother stopped Ziling's father once again. She said in a low voice, "Just let Yuer stay a while more in her lover's embrace." After hearing her words, the expression of Ziling's father changed for a while, but ultimately he helplessly sighed, flicked his sleeves, and no longer cared about the two of them. Only after kissing for a good while did Chu Feng hold himself back. He bent over to Ziling's ears, and after saying, "Wait for me," he let go of his hand. Seeing that, Ziling's mother hurriedly walked up, held Ziling's hand, grabbed onto Ziling and rose into the sky. In a mere instant they disappeared. "Father, let's leave as well. Actually, we haven't blamed you. After all, you did it for the sake of Yuer. However, when you return to the current Zai family, you will believe that you were wrong. The immortal execution archipelago aren't the type of people you think they are. They are a truly righteous family, and they take care of my Zai family a lot as well." Zi Ling's father said. Zi Xiaoyuan did not pay attention to him. He walked up to Chu Feng, lightly patted his shoulder, then said, "What you do depends on you. I believe that one day you will make a world that belongs to you." After speaking those words, Zi Xiaoyuan walked to Zi Ling's father's side, and without even looking at Chu Feng, he grabbed onto Zi Xiaoyuan, rose into the air, and instantly disappeared. They didn't even leave the slightest trace of aura. After Zi Ling's parents brought Zi Ling and Zi Xiaoyuan to meet up with the master of the Zai family, they rode an elite armament chariot, preparing to return to the Eastern Sea region. The chariot was very quick because it was a mastered elite armament, with 3 martial lords channeling their powers into it. Its speed was like light. Even if the chariot passed by a Heaven Realm expert, they wouldn't be able to detect it. However, suddenly, the chariot trembled and had to stop in midair. It had to because in front of the chariot, a black-clothed old man appeared, stopping the path of the chariot. "Who are you?" The sudden change shocked the master of the Zai family as well as Ziling's parents. They quickly leaped out of the chariot and questioned the black-clothed old man. Quickly after, Ziling and Zi Xiaoyuan also curiously followed out. They really wanted to know why the old man had to stop them. "Cuckoo, you will regret." The black-clothed old man did not directly reply. He strangely smiled, revealing an expression that no one could see through. "Regret what?" The master of the Zai family's brows tightly locked. He discovered that even with his strength, he was actually unable to see through the black-clothed old man. So he felt that he was very possibly a troublesome existence. "You will regret taking this lady away and missing out on a good ending." The black-clothed old man chuckled, then said to Zi Ling, "Oh lady, you should truly be more firm and refuse going back with these several trash. Because that dog but immortal execution archipelago is a group of despicable people who are greatly righteous and benevolent on the surface, but are hiddenly, incomparably contemptible. These 3 trash want you to marry over to them. That is definitely hurting you. Where did this old bastard come from who dares to say such shameless big words? I'll rip your mouth apart." Hearing those words, Ziling's father was enraged. He waved his hand, causing the surrounding space to twist and change. An extremely horrifying power was being emanated from his body. At that instant, the weather truly changed and thunder surged. When a martial lord expert attacked, it instantly created might that was like a lord descending upon the mortal world. However, the black-clothed old man coldly smiled, then said, "Even a little pleb like you dares to attack me." Immediately after the black-clothed old man spoke, his gaze turned cold and emanated limitless killing intent. At that instant, The sky that was originally clear for 10,000 miles actually became an endless night. Everything in the world changed. There was an ocean of corpses and bones on the ground, and the flowing blood formed rivers. Flames of battle were everywhere in the sky, and the sun and moon became blood red. As the world changed, Ziling's father's face also changed greatly. A mouthful of blood was sprayed out, and he actually powerlessly fell. Xianxia. Seeing that, Ziling's mother hurriedly propped him up. Only then did Ziling's father not fall down. Illusion methods. At that instant, the master of the Zai family saw through it and knew that it was an illusion. So both of his hands kept on transforming, and at the end they overlaid. Then he explosively shouted, "Break! HMPH!" However, to the Zai family master's destruction methods that he used, the black-clothed old man only disdainfully snorted coldly. The Zai family's master then opened his mouth, and similarly, a mouthful of aged blood was sprayed out. Family master, Ziling's mother moved once again. Her left hand was holding onto Ziling's father, while her right hand was holding onto the family master. After a short while of confrontation, the Zai family master no longer had his previous might. He wiped the traces of blood on the corners of his mouth, then asked with a face full of fear, "Senior, who exactly are you? You want to know who I am? I'll let you know who I am." Suddenly, the black-clothed old man madly laughed, and simultaneously the world was actually shaking, as if a natural disaster is going to happen soon. Finally, in the sky above, an incomparably huge crack appeared, and from the crack 4 words came down. Those words were blood red, as if they were condensed and formed by the blood of 10,000 living things. And those 4 big words were, "Crippling Night Demon Sect." Seeing the 4 bloody big words in the sky, the faces of the Zai family's master, as well as Ziling's parents and even Ziling's grandfather, changed greatly. The fear in their eyes became extremely dense instantly. It was because all of them knew what the crippling night demon sect represented. It represented the #1 demon sect in the Eastern Sea region many years ago, so strong that not a single power could defeat it. Even if it was the current immortal execution archipelago, they weren't able to defeat the crippling night demon sect. The crippling night demon sect of that year was like the sun at noon, not to mention the unimaginably powerful head of the demon sect. Even if it was only 4 protectors of the demon sect, all of them had strengths which were akin to those of the heads of other powers. The Eastern Sea region of that time was indeed the world of the crippling night demon sect. Not a single power dared to fight against it. Until one day, the head of the demon sect suddenly passed away. For seizing the position of head, the 4 protectors killed one another, causing the demon sect to split in many pieces. The huge monster that was titled as the overlord of the Eastern Sea region for several thousands of years finally gave up its position in the Eastern Sea region. However, although the crippling night demon sect was already fragmented, everyone knew that the people of the demon sect were still people who the Eastern Sea region feared the most. In the Eastern Sea region, no matter which power it was, no one was willing to easily offend the people from the crippling night demon sect, because those who did would certainly receive their insane revenge. Even the current peak powers of the Eastern Sea region weren't willing to anger the people from the crippling night demon sect, because the 4 protectors of the crippling night demon sect, who were still living healthily, were still extremely terrifying existences. Luckily they opposed one another, or else, if they joined hands, even if it was the immortal execution archipelago that was becoming more and more powerful by the day, they were not necessarily able to defeat them. And since the black-clothed old man in front of them actually had such terrifying strength, clearly, he was not an ordinary person within the crippling night demon sect. Before they were even so disrespectful, so how could they not be afraid? Poof. Suddenly, the master of the Zai family half-knelt in the air, kowtowed to the black-clothed old man with his hands together held in front of him, and endlessly admitted his faults. "It was me who had sockets but no eyes. Senior, I didn't know you were a part of the crippling night demon sect. I ask, as you are a great character, please have great benevolence and forgive my family. Senior, have mercy. Senior, have mercy. At the same time, Zi Ling's parents also half-knelt in the sky, and both asked for forgiveness from the black-clothed old man. Facing such parents and the so-called family master, Zi Ling lightly frowned, and a hint of disdain flashed into her eyes. She never would have thought that as martial lords, they didn't have any courage. In front of a weak person, they acted as if they were invincible and did everything decisively. But in front of a powerful person, they actually kowtowed. Even if people like them had strength, they were fated to have achievements that weren't too great. It had to be said that at that very instant, Zi Ling, who already had an extremely poor impression on the Zai family, had an even worse impression now. HMPH, garbage is garbage. In your life you will always be garbage. Don't worry, I won't kill you. You aren't even qualified to die by my hands. But, seeing several dogs like you who are blindly loyal to the immortal execution archipelago, I can't help but tell you this. Don't think that the immortal execution archipelago is truly invincible in this world, since its might is shocking the Eastern Sea right now. There are plenty of people who can take care of it. Scram. Speaking to trash like you is simply a waste of my breath and lowering who I am. The black-clothed old man coldly snorted, then the world changed. Very quickly, the ocean of blood disappeared. The corpses and bones could not be seen, and the endless night became the clear sky for a 10,000 miles again. Coincident with that, the black-clothed old man also disappeared. Family master, the old man just now. His strength is really too terrifying. Is it possible that the Inferno divine bird was killed by him? Is it possible that he is? After Zi Ling's father rose, he asked with a face filled with fear. And after the master of the Zai family stood back up, he did not reply. He first wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead, then said to Zi Ling's mother, quickly leave this place. Quickly return to the Eastern Sea region. Chu Feng did not know about the scene that the Zai family just experienced. At that moment, he was standing on the top of the Void Tower, looking towards the direction that Zi Ling and the others disappeared at. His heart was extremely complicated. He didn't understand too much about the immortal execution archipelago, but as long as he recalled that it was the strongest force in the Eastern Sea region, and even the Zai family members, who had the cultivations of martial lords, had to be respectful towards it, Chu Feng could more or less understand the power of the immortal execution archipelago. The time of 4 years was too short. If he truly had to confront the enormous power 4 years later, his chances of victory could be said to be extremely distant. But no matter what, he would do his best to raise his strength. Even if there was just the tiniest bit of hope, he had to grab onto the little hope and not let go. Chu Feng, are you okay? Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi's voice rang out behind him. Turning his head to look, he saw Zhang Tianyi, Qi Fengyang, Jiang Hengyuan, the monstrous Monkey King and the others flying over. In a blink, they landed on the Void Tower and worriedly asked Chu Feng. Facing their questioning, Chu Feng did not hide anything and said everything in detail. They who knew the truth all started to comfort Chu Feng. They tried to make Chu Feng forget about Zi Ling because they felt that facing such enormousness, Chu Feng had almost no hope. Rather than constantly thinking about Zi Ling, why not put away the thoughts? After all, short pain is better than long pain. But to the crowd's words, Chu Feng only lightly smiled and did not reply. He knew that those people were doing all that for him, however. His decision was already set, and it was absolutely not going to change. It was because he knew that with Zi Ling's character, she would definitely do what she said. So 4 years later, no matter what, he had to go over, even if he at that time was still as weak as an ant, and going there was equal to sending himself to death. He had to go because he could not allow Zi Ling to die alone for him. Besides, although the future was vague at the bottom of Chu Feng's heart, there was indeed a trace of hope. It was for no other reason, but because of the divine lightning in his body. Although the divine lightning's appetite was very big, so big that it filled Chu Feng with suffering. As long as he had enough cultivation resources, the divine lightning could allow Chu Feng's cultivation to explosively rise within a short amount of time. At present, the Emperor Tomb was one chance. If there were things like an essence pool and ice and fire pearls outside of the Emperor Tomb, then perhaps within it, there would be some treasures, possibly even cultivation oddities that Chu Feng didn't know about. After a few days of time, the emperor of the Jiang dynasty finally came to the Azure province and arrived at the Void School. However, accompanying the arrival of the emperor were many experts from the Jiang dynasty. They were the same as Jiang Hengyuan, having the cultivation of the 7th level of the heaven realm. They actually had no less than 9 people with that cultivation. It was the same cultivation as the old ancestor of the World Spirit Guild, the genius whose name spread throughout the 9 provinces 100 years ago, Gu Tianchen. From that, it could be seen that the Jiang dynasty was indeed very powerful. At least in the continent of the 9 provinces, they were invincible. If Chu Feng saw the people from the Jiang dynasty before, he would definitely be shocked at their strength. But after seeing the strength of the Zai family, Chu Feng more and more deeply understood the words Ziling said. In the continent of the 9 provinces, the reason why they could make people look up to them wasn't because they were strong. It was just because the people here were too weak. So it was only right that they, who had outstanding talent, were admired by people. If they couldn't even do that, that itself wouldn't make sense. And other than the 9 experts who had the same strength as Jiang Hengyuan, there was also a short old man who was as thin as a match. The old man's appearance was truly incomparably ugly. There were even more wrinkles on his face than 10 steamed buns altogether. His head seemed bald when seen from afar, but there were still a few white strands when seen near. His mouth was full of stench, and the most important part was that he even lost his front teeth. However, although the old man had an ugly appearance, his cultivation was very strong. It was not lower than the Jiang dynasty's emperor, and was clearly on the same level as the monstrous Monkey King, having the cultivation of the 8th level of the heaven realm. And from the Jiang dynasty, crowds respectful appearances towards the old man, and from their words, Chu Feng also learned of the man's identity. He was the current emperor's uncle. Although his position in the clan was inferior to the dynasty's old ancestor, he was still the person who had lived for the longest in the Jiang dynasty. From what he had heard, he was already 150 years old. Normally speaking, a normal commoner's life would be at most a few dozen years. A cultivator's would not pass 100 years. So it had to be said that it was a miracle for this old man to be able to live for 150 years. But currently, the thing that attracted Chu Feng's attention the most was a white-haired old man who wore a gold robe and had a face full of benevolence. That old man's aura was actually a lot thicker than the monstrous Monkey King's. According to Chu Feng's guess, that old man should be the true ruler of the Jiang dynasty, the former emperor of the Jiang dynasty, but the current old ancestor of the dynasty. His cultivation should have already infinitely reached the martial lord realm, and was an expert in the 9th level of the heaven realm. Other than that, the old ancestor of the World Spirit Guild, Gu Tianchen, as well as the head of the World Spirit Guild, also followed the people from the Jiang dynasty and arrived here together. They first checked the Inferno divine bird that had already died, but ultimately they didn't discover anything. Also on that day, the dynasty's old ancestor announced another thing that made Chu Feng rejoice. It was that they already finished preparing and was going to open the Emperor Tomb soon. After a while of organizing, a group that gathered many Heaven Realm experts finally came to the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range. Only after coming there did people learn that the old ancestor of the Jiang dynasty was also a Purple Cloak world spiritist. With the methods of the dynasty's old ancestor and the monstrous Monkey King, they easily locked onto the position of the entrance to the Emperor Tomb. With the crowd accompanying him, Chu Feng also finally stepped back into this entrance to the Emperor Tomb. Chu Feng, I've already heard of the matter between you and Ziling. Believe me, they will regret missing out on you, So, do not be discouraged. As long as you are willing to work hard, your achievements will be immeasurable. As the crowd walked forward together, Chu Feng suddenly received a mental message. Slanting his gaze to look, he saw that the old ancestor of the dynasty next to him was smilingly looking at himself. Facing the encouragement of the dynasty's old ancestor, Chu Feng returned a smile. After a short while of being together, Chu Feng also had a very good impression of him. But for some reason, Chu Feng had a bad feeling. The strongest old man in the Jiang dynasty seemed to have a very favorable impression on himself. Entering the emperor tomb this time, he even let the monstrous monkey king lead the way, and as for himself, he kept on staying by Chu Feng's side to protect his safety. No one in Chu Feng's group had weak cultivation. Other than Chu Feng, everyone's cultivation was at least in the 5th level of the heaven realm. So, their speed was very quick. In a blink, they passed through layers of anti-demon symbols. Finally, the lake that stopped Chu Feng back then reappeared in front of him. It's only one evil spirit. Watch this. At that instant, a dynasty expert with cultivation in the 6th level of the heaven realm rose into the air and flew over the lake. Asterisk him him him, asterisk, just as that person flew above the lake. The green-colored dots of light that were floating above the lake's surface were like arrows as they flew quickly towards that person. Break. However, that person waved his big sleeve. Boundless heaven power pressed downwards and shattered all of the green-colored dots of light. Asterisk Wuo asterisk quickly after, a furious howl rang out from the lake. A huge spray rose into the air, and simultaneously, a pair of giant dark green eyes seeped through the spray. An enormous monster was hidden within the water sprays and made a surprise attack on the dynasty experts. HMPH. However, even if it was the evil spirit that personally attacked, the dynasty expert was still not afraid in the slightest. He formed a fist with one of his hands. Then layers of heaven power condensed within the fist. Radiance shot in all directions with extraordinary might. Ha! Quickly after, he explosively yelled, then threw a punch downwards. Asterisk boom asterisk an explosion resonated. Instantly, splashes sprayed everywhere and huge waves rolled. Asterisk wuao asterisk at the same time, a miserable cry also rang out, and the danger feeling in the lake thoroughly disappeared as well. It died. In front of the dynasty expert, the evil spirit that was incomparable powerful to Chu Feng of back then, was exploded to death by one punch. That scene was within everyone's expectations, because those who were able to come to this place were all world spiritists. They could feel the strength of the evil spirit, and as it was an evil spirit only in the 1st level of the heaven realm, no one put it in their eyes. But to Chu Feng, he very emotionally sighed. To the present Chu Feng, an evil spirit in the 1st level of the heaven realm was indeed not much, and he could easily kill it. But he would never forget how terrifying that evil spirit in front of him was back then. Just with the 2 dark green eyes, they could completely terrify the Chu Feng of that time. Cuckoo, this is indeed an emperor tomb. I never would have thought in such a desolate place there would actually be a tomb like this. This is truly a great surprise fallen from heaven, an unexpected harvest. Ha 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 ha. But suddenly, an aged voice suddenly rang in Chu Feng's ears. At that instant, Chu Feng was abruptly alarmed. He hurriedly swept his gaze towards his surroundings, because he could already tell who the voice belonged to. It was precisely the extremely horrifying black-clothed old man whom he met within the ocean of fire back then. What's wrong, Chu Feng? Seeing Chu Feng's nervous expression, the old ancestor of the Jiang dynasty lightly frowned and nervously asked, Chu Feng, did you discover something? At the same time, everyone cast their gazes towards Chu Feng and nervously questioned. In this emperor tomb exploration, Chu Feng was the root. They all felt that, as he received the inheritance of 2 secret skills, there was some fate between him and the emperor tomb. With Chu Feng there, as they went deeper into the emperor tomb, perhaps they would have great harvests. So, only when something was wrong with Chu Feng did everyone become nervous. They even thought Chu Feng found something. It's nothing. Seeing their reactions, Chu Feng shook his head with a small smile, but he hiddenly said in his heart, "Was it just my imagination?" Because Chu Feng clearly heard the black-clothed old man's loud laugh, but clearly the people here didn't hear anything. "Boy, go back. This emperor tomb isn't something that you can enter. Forcefully pressing deeper only means you are sending yourself to death. Go back and wait. After I enter the deep part of this emperor tomb, I will give you some benefits as reward for bringing me to this emperor tomb." But suddenly, the voice of the black-clothed old man was projected into his ear. At that instant, Chu Feng knew that it wasn't his imagination. It was a mental message that the black-clothed old man sent him.